Thank you, Madgaz, for coming onto the show. This is really something because you have been probably one of the earliest and most long-standing creators in the mod tool scene.
Well, thank you.
I think you've got like the third map ever released onto mod tools, which is absolutely insane. The fact that you've stayed this long in the community and made so many fantastic and amazing projects, it's just mind-blowing to me.
The third, is that right? The third. I remember coming into mod tools, it was just so insane. It was like a weird, surreal experience. But to be was it the third map?
I think some maps might have gotten taken down, but I believe it is. Hopefully, I'm saying this right. Fabric, Der Toten.
Fabric Der Toten.
Der Toten. Yeah, that is the third map ever released.
Holy shit! I did not know that. I did not know that.
It is really, like I said, it is really awesome to have you here. I want to kind of get talking about just the early days and how that has kind of shaped you into who you are. So what made you kind of like first get into the mod tools? Were you here for World at War custom maps, or did you start out with Black Ops 3?
Let me think back. Right, so the actual history as it goes, I was modding heavily on Grand Theft Auto 5, which is totally separate genre altogether. And I started doing model conversions and creating models for that. And what happened was, actually, no, go further back again than that. I started on Hammer making maps for Half-Life. I did that for a small period of time, and I thought that's pretty cool. I love that stuff. Then I saw different things from different like games and stuff, and I kind of just never did anything with it because back then I didn't have a PC powerful enough. And then eventually when Grand Theft Auto 5 came around, I went back into it again and thought to myself, hang on, I used to do this way back when it was Half-Life, CSGO types. Well, it wasn't CSGO, it was just called Counter-Strike back in the day. And that's when I started creating 3D models, which was a weird process back then to what 3D models are created like now. And there was a guy called Fear Reaper. He's one of the main guys who does loads of perks and stuff now. I think that's his name. And I created the banana colada model based off an idea somebody on Reddit had. I created the model, the jingle and all that, and I was and Fear Reaper took the model and put it into World at War. And bearing in mind, in World at War, it wasn't even like, I don't know how to describe it. Like the textures on the model wasn't textured. It was just an image I found on Google image search, edited in Photoshop, and changed the color to like a green color, so it looked like a metallic green rather than using materials and stuff like that like you can do now. And he did that, and he put that into World at War. And then from then, I'm trying to think how far. It's just so many different variables that took place back then. I may have been speaking to Zeroy back then. I'm not entirely sure if I was, but all I know is back for the World at War customs, I never really did anything. I remember loading up the World at War custom map maker stuff back then and just looking at it and thinking, what the hell is this? This is so wild. This is not for me. I look at that and just thought it's so alien to anything I could ever think of doing in my life or whatever. And then obviously with Black Ops 3, and I heard that mod tools, I heard through some grapevine that the mod tools was happening again for Black Ops 3, and I was thinking, that'd be cool. I would love to get in on that. And I saw Zeroy, and there was a guy called, I wish I could remember his name. He's not Jack Black. It was Black something. Black Johnny Black or something. That was this guy. And he was absolutely fantastic. He's still got YouTube tutorials out there for World at War. And he started posting videos on Black Ops 3 customs as it was happening. This alpha program, they called it, the Alpha Mod Tools program. Mm-hmm. And I was watching these videos. And then Zeroy started messaging or chatting to Zeroy. And then I think it was a week or two later, I gets a random email from Activision or from Treyarch, let's say, from PC Dev, asking if I wanted to be part of the alpha tools because they'd seen my banana colada model. Yeah, I mean, they saw the model that I created for World at War, and it was hideous. The model, I wish I'll try and find some photos and show them sometime, but it was a horrendous model. But they saw that, and they were like, "Would you like to join the Alpha Mod Tools program for Black Ops 3?" And I was like, "Oh, yes, please." And that was it. From then on, it spiraled. That's basically, from far back as I can remember, how I got into the tools.
That's so crazy. So you you were just kind of like not even really into like the mapping scene, yet you were even from the beginning one of the big mappers that were out there. How did you kind of like learn to map before there were any like YouTube tutorials out there?
Um, a lot of trial and error. Zeroy had a massive hand in helping. I must have bugged that guy so much. He must have hated me. I literally was hounding him all the time. I didn't understand anything about like just anything mapping wise. It was so alien. Like I say, I remember you could probably go back on YouTube and see my very, very first tutorial, not even a tutorial, my very first video in mod tools when I say like I've been asked for the alpha. And I think I'm in the test map and I've put a big wall around the test map and hung one of the Iron Cross flags. And that was it. And in my head, I was like, this is awesome. I've created something so awesome here. Even though it was so like what people do now. And I'm like, why are you creating shit? Create something good. I, I, I don't even know how I became around like to do tutorials.
Mhm.
I think it was like I said, just mainly trial and error and just test things and see what works. And if it didn't work, don't release a tutorial on it. But now I look at some of the stuff people are creating, I'm like, whoa, holy whoa, I wish I could do that. And I can't do half the stuff most people can now.
No, yeah, because I feel like I'm like I wouldn't say like amazing, but I'm like fairly knowledgeable in how to do like a bunch of stuff in the tools, and then I'll just see something like Dingus working on his Western map. I'm like,
Oh yeah,
how did you do that? What the hell?
I know. I'm the same. Every time you post a new picture and stuff, I'm like, how is what like? How did you make that look almost real life? And then it's obviously I know it's good lighting and good LUTs and stuff like that, but
Mhm.
I still to this day don't know how to detail enough to make it indistinguishable between real life and in game. I feel like everything I create looks like it is for Black Ops 3 mod tools. It looks like it is for a zombie game, which is fine because that's what it's created for. But I would like to be able to just push that mark to where I could think, holy fuck, is that real or is that? I don't know. I can never get that far. I always kind of limit myself. I don't know if I just not limit myself or just I don't push myself enough than I should.
Well, I think it's mainly what I find it's that it's the models and textures themselves from Black Ops 3. They have this look where for me as a developer, I can kind of tell I'm like, yeah, that's the Black Ops 3 look. I think if you
Yeah,
want to try
yeah.
to kind of avoid that, I usually go of out to the different Call of Duties. I think World War II best models and assets you can get, and then the Modern Warfare 1 and 2 remakes are also up there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Those games that can really change the look of the map with just using separate models.
Totally agree. Totally 100%. I remember when the packs for World War II came out, and I was like, "Oh, these are cool. I like these." And the setup process to set one of those models up into Ape compared to Black Ops 3 models, it was so easy. It was so you had your color map, your normal, your occlusion map, and your specular and stuff like that. You just had the few maps, images, and that was it. Whereas Black Ops 3, they had mixed maps and all these multi reveals and shit. And you're like, I'm just making a rock. For fuck's sake, I'm just porting a rock. Why has a rock got 7 different types of reveals on it?
Oh, I feel the same way with like Black Ops 4 models. I think it's just the way Treyarch makes their textures and everything. It's just everything is kind of mixed together, and I'm just like, I
Yeah.
need to just kind of like drag and drop these specific images, and I want that to be the end of it. Like I can't I can't
That's how
with
I
all
feel.
this.
That's how I feel.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to get some input on how you kind of start with a map. Say you have a new idea for a map. How do you just kind of begin the workflow into bringing that to life?
I don't even know if I do workflow. You know, these people that sit and they may plan, they may block things out, block out. I've seen some people who can like literally, like you may be familiar with these things called Blocktober, where people post their blockouts in
Oh
October
yeah,
on
yeah.
Twitter or on different sites. And I see these people with these massive grand scale designs in blockout form. And I'm like, I've never ever done that. And anytime I ever try and do that, I always just ignore the blockout. I may place some blocks down as a rough idea, and then half an hour later, those blockouts are gone. So I don't know about the workflow for it. I'm one of these ones where I can just think, right, I want to create a map that's this, this, and this, and I just try and do it. I should probably put more pen to paper and design a little bit more for my maps and stuff, but I just kind of wing it. I wing almost every design of every map I've done, and it was really so evident when I really came to do the remake of Fabric Durin Toten with Atonement, which, if you didn't know, was the remake of Fabric Durin
I
Toten.
had no
And
idea.
when I was reloaded that map file into Radiant, and I saw what I did back then, I was like, "What did that? What? Who created this?" Like some corridors weren't even wide enough for a zombie to actually walk down, and I was using those as zombie spawns.
Hmm.
And looking back and thinking, why didn't I make that bigger? Why didn't I make that corridor bigger? Then when I actually made it bigger, I thought, oh yeah, because then it cuts into the play space. I'm like, I did not plan. I never plan things out. I think across my entire time doing the mod tools, I'm possibly drew out a map design maybe 3 times, maybe. Like,
Wow.
I remember I drew out the map design for Harbridge, Operation Harbridge. I drew that out while I was at work on break, and I was kind of thinking of a Sheena Noma style map, and I went with that, and that was it. But I took a lot of inspiration from Zetsubo and Sheena Noma. But as of workflow goes, I just wing it. I genuinely just wing everything I do in maps. I take inspiration from other maps. I look at it and think, yeah, that might look cool in my map. I mean, for instance, the new map I'm remaking, like the Ochilon, I stuck in the Liberty Falls Church. It probably doesn't really belong anywhere near an old German school,
Yeah,
but it's there.
just gotta add it for shits and gigs. No, I feel like I'm the same way when it comes to like mapping itself. Like I will literally, I'll just kind of hop on Radiant, and I'm just like, okay, what do I feel like working on today? Maybe this room. I'm gonna kind of give it like a semi shape, but it's probably not gonna be that shape at the
Yeah.
when I'm working on it. But I feel like I planned everything out that isn't the map itself, right? Like I'll kind of like figure the story out. I'll kind of figure out how I want the vibe to be, but when I'm actually in the Radiant and mapping itself, it's just free flow. How do you kind of come up with like the beginning of the mapping process? Not planning things out, but where does it kind of all start? Is it more of like I have an idea of where I like what story I want to tell, or I want to set it in like this location, or you think like, oh, this would be like a good gameplay mechanic. Let's see what I can do here.
I think it's quite a mix of all those things. So, uh, yeah, just I think of like a good idea that I want to base the map around something. So Fabric Dern Toten, I didn't really have any idea what I was mapping. So really I can kind of negate that and just take that off the table for any kind of like thought involved. It was just mod tools had just been alpha, this, that, and t'other, and I was testing things, creating rooms, making stuff. As a map, as it looks, it's horrendous. It doesn't even flow well. It's not even a really well designed map. But as I went further down the line, I would try and in my head think of a almost real life situation, real life scenario of where I would want my game to start or what would look really cool for the player to start into. And I don't even think I ever achieved that yet. So let's say the Ochilon map, you start in my head, I try and get into the narrative of what takes place before you arrive to the map.
Mhm.
So it's I did have a cutscene was created for the Ochilon that I did release. It was a shame we couldn't actually put cutscenes into the actual maps without a mod. But anyway, so the idea is I try and think of how did the players get from this point A to point B, which A being the previous map, B being the new map. Why are they in this situation? I think I kind of look at like all the other maps through zombie history where you'll see a cutscene play out and you'll see the end of the cutscene, but then when the cutscene finishes and you launch into the map, you're nowhere near where that cutscene took place.
Right.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking like Blood of the Dead, that cutscene ends at the docks and then you're back at Richthofen's lab.
Yes, exactly. So stuff like that, and you think, well, what I don't understand that. So when I was trying to make my maps, I was trying to like in my head think, how has the player getting to this point? So if they've gotten to the docks, let's say in Blood of the Dead, I would start working on the docks and kind of make a visual kind of element to show the players, oh, this is how they got there. There's a boat there, or this is the path they came to, or something like that. But the Blood of the Dead thing, that's a kind of end point. They got to the docks, and that was the end of the running away from the zombies, which is weird. It's a weird way to start it, but that's how I try and start my maps as a start point. Like, how did they get there? Why are they there? And what's interesting for when the player comes into the map? what can they see that you think, ooh, that's a really nice, like a big facade. You can see like something in the distance. I've got to aim for that. That's my main objective. That's kind of where I try and go for things. Whether or not it works or not, I don't know. I know I did make a couple of maps where you're inside a room, like the Studio 115 map. You're basically inside the backstage room of a movie set. And I wanted that to be the grand, like not the grand reveal, but you're in a what looks like you're in a dressing room and you come out into the movie set and it's a Christmas movie, like stuff like that. Where it's I don't really have a set way, to be honest, of how I do things. It's kind of like I say, I wing it. I wing it a lot with my map making. But when I start my first room, what I tend to do, this is actually probably the worst way to do it. I spend too much on the starting area. I detail it up. I detail it like to the point where I'm like, oh, this is really nicely detailed. It looks really cool. This is how the story's going to unfold. This is what the events are, the Easter egg, and that all in my head. It's all in my head at this point. Then I'll detail this starting room. And then I'm like, right, where do I go from that? What do I do from this? I've
Oh
created this cool
yeah.
starting room and I don't have any other branching arcs or anything I can think of that's going to attach to this to make this flow well. Take, for instance, like I said, the new map I'm making, Ochilon, the remake. I started with a garden at the front of the school, thinking I'll detail it. It will be like a overgrown, or no, it was meant to be a barren, like it being left there to everything's dead. All the trees are dead. The plants are dead. And as I went through mapping it, making that room, I was thinking, this looks boring. It looked cool, the first little section. But if I'm going to have the entire garden area just be dead foliage, it is going to look so brown and so boring. So that's when I reverted back and started adding green trees and green foliage back in and just reverted on the idea. I really wish I planned better. I really wish I did. But the truth of it is, I literally start my spawn rooms with one little idea in my head and go with it. And then once I've passed the spawn room, I just get stumped. I just like, what do I do next? And that's literally it, the truth of it all.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Like, I will change things on a dime depending on how I'm feeling that day. Like, I'll be like, oh well, I've worked 7 hours on this Vista every day for the past 3 days. I think I'll just delete it. It's not really working.
Yeah.
So it's like for me, I find like that free flow state that's always coming in and out. But I think you do have a really good grasp of like visual storytelling in the narrative of a map. Like
Right. Yeah.
it's really cool what you do, especially with the new map Ochilon. You spawn in and then you just look up and then above you is this just massive school. And I find
Yeah.
that
That's the idea.
that's just like a very excellent way of visually telling the player you're going over there. I think that kind of just visual storytelling and just how having players use their intuition to navigate a map that you make, you have mastered that in my opinion.
Hmm. I don't know about mastered it. I think I'm a jack of all trades when it comes to stuff like that. But also, I think thinking on like that whole idea of you spawn in one set area and off in the distance you can see which, let's say, example, the school is your main goal or the main objective to get there. That's what you need to do. Kind of Liberty Falls, you can see the church in the distance. You know that that's where you're heading. And I think, to me personally, it spawns from being a child of the 80s and early 90s that playing games back then, you would always have a vista like around the player that you could
Mhm.
never reach. You could run in that direction for hours and hours and you would never reach that vista. You would never get there. So when you create a game, it's nice to be able to spawn into it, see something in the distance, even if it's far away in the distance. It's cool that you know that you're going to reach that point at some point rather than just you're running and you never get there. Kind of like for visualization's sake, like the game Outrun. You're in a car, you're driving. There's hills in the distance. You never reach those hills. They're just a rolling vista. That's all that is.
Mhm.
And I kind of think when I do things like that with things in the distance, it's nice to know that you're going to reach that point rather than just limiting the players. Like you might get so far towards it and go, oh, it's just a vista. I never get there. So that's what I'm trying to do with the Ochilon now.
Yeah, I think having that vista in the background, making everything playable, or not everything playable, but these
Yeah.
main focal points that you can see from spawn, and just being like, okay, from like the first second of the game, I can know where I'm gonna go. I can tell like, okay, these are going to be areas I want to visit. Having that can really elevate a map from just
Hmm.
kind of like a regular map, just that next level. I want to ask, what do you think elevates like a kind of a basic map into that next level?
I'm going to say good storytelling. Sorry, I'm a good storyteller and good visuals, because I think that both those work hand in hand. You can have an amazing story but really terrible visuals, and it's, to me personally, it does not. I'm not immersed in it, and this could go back. There was a. I'm not going to name names, but there was a map years ago. He would create block maps. Everything was just a block of a wall, and we'd put a picture on the wall, let's say, of a volcano,
Mm,
and the audio that you'd be playing through the map as the Easter egg progressed, you'd say like, you've got to make your way to the laboratory that's inside the volcano, and it's like, well, you've just used a dev block and put an image of a volcano on there. You could actually model the volcano and hit a laboratory inside the volcano. It'd be more impressive. But the storyline was good, but the visuals weren't so up to par. And it works both ways. You could have a map that's absolutely outstanding, like the best looking map on the workshop. It could look absolutely fantastic. Sound design, awesome weapons, everything absolutely phenomenal. But if that storyline's not there and you're not immersed in the storyline inside of the map itself, then you just lose interest. And there was one map, it might have been Danny, created a map where it was kind of story driven and it had aesthetic music playing, and the visuals they weren't the best, they weren't amazing, but they were good, and the storyline was fantastic, and you got pulled into it, and you felt like you were part of that little story that was happening. And that's what I like to try and do, is try and keep your story and your visuals on the same kind of level of detail. Otherwise, if one falls short, you're trying to catch yourself up with the other. And I like to
hmm.
try and balance that a little bit. So you have a good story with good visuals and the players can feel a bit more immersed into it. But if you have amazing visuals, terrible story, then you're not going to be that interested. Just likewise, if you had amazing story but terrible visuals, it's you've got to it's getting that balance. It's all about getting that balance with your story and your visuals, I would say.
Yeah, no, narrative is such an underrated aspect of custom zombies maps, and the ones that have it, I find always stand out.
Yes.
Even just subtle things like, oh, blood on the wall, telling people this is kind of how like somebody died. Just like a little,
Yes. I
just
love stuff like that.
little things like that. Just inclinations of how a map is and what happened in this area. You know, even subconsciously, you're not thinking about it, but at the same time, it's like you're getting that narrative and you're
Hmm.
understanding the map, and
Yeah.
you kind of you feel connected to it more so than you would a map that probably looks good but doesn't have that narrative.
Totally agree. And that also goes in hand with how you detail your map and how, so like, say for instance, if someone creates a hole in the wall for zombies to come through, or there's just a random hole in the wall anywhere, like somewhere in the map, or a building's collapsed, it's nice to be able to walk past that building and see what caused that damage, rather than just seeing a hole in the wall and just thinking, oh, well, there's a hole in the wall. What's that there for? It'd be cool if you saw that, oh, there's maybe like I don't know, missiles hit it, just for example, or a car's crashed into the wall and it's pulled it down. Tell us when you detail maps, it's nice to tell a story through your detail. I like to try and do that. So rather than just, like I say, making a hole in the floor, say, all right, why is there a hole in the floor? What caused that hole in the floor? Oh, there's rubbish line there's trash line around the place. Why is there trash line around the place? Where did the trash come from? There's no trash cans anywhere. So why is there trash? You know what I mean? Like, try and tie everything together. Like, you always
Yeah,
see
yeah.
people use like the rubble assets and the scattered glass and metal debris assets to detail the floors, to make their floors look more complex than what they really are. Yet when you play the map, there's no actual visible signs of anything being destroyed. Yet they've got loads of rubble lying all over the place, and little
Mhm.
fires burning here and there. It's like, well, why is that on fire? Why is concrete rubble burning? Concrete rubble doesn't burn. It's like, try and keep things a little. I understand it's a game and it's the whole thing's fantasy anyway. But when you try and like make the player believe what's happening in your map, it just looks more visually pleasing, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely having that just connected to environment can really make the difference. I find that I kind of I'm of the boat where it's just like, well, it's a goddamn zombie apocalypse. There's going to be blood and there's going to be rubble everywhere.
Yeah,
But at the
yeah.
same time, I'm also like, well, let's see. Why is this giant pile of bricks here. Maybe I can just bust a hole in a wall, and
Exactly.
that could
Yeah,
be
that's all it
the
takes.
reasoning. I want to know, are there any key principles that you have when like making a map? I know it's a bit of a like a wishy-washy kind of based on feel mapping style, but
Yeah.
are there key principles that you follow?
I've always done as much as I can remember. I try and keep my maps in an almost 3 lane multiplayer style design that you have your starting zone and you always have a left and right place to go, which will take you to your main objective. So if you could probably look at most of my maps and you'll always find your spawn zone, other than a few maps I've done, your spawn zone should always have, well, my personally, I think should always have two doors to lead from. And one of the best examples of this, two best examples I could give, is Der Eisendrache and Kino Dern Toten.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice, and you have so for Kino, you start in the foyer part of the cinema of the theater, and you would have a door up the stairs and the door underneath, which would take you outside, and vice versa, one upstairs. But then you'd have the other door in the middle, which is the power door, which opens when you turn the power on, which takes you into the main theater hall. So then you've got a three doorway, but also it's blocked because of the power door. Same applies for the Eisendrache. You start off in the tram station. You have a door to the right. You can go up outside, and you have your door to the left. You go up through the little mini cave system up into the part of the castle. But you also have a power door at the back that opens up to like the little cell where Juggernog is. You have that opens up once power's on, and I always try and recreate something similar to that. So for the Ochilon, I've done this exact same thing again. You've got your spawn, you have your left path, which takes you to the Liberty Falls type area, which will loop around, which will eventually take you to the main school. Then I've got the other side, which is kind of going to be a countryside little area where, let's say, the students would go like on the lake, and there'd be some picnic benches and that way they would sit and have their lunch. That takes you up again to the other side of the school. But in the middle, where I've got the giant statue from Black Ops 4, the Dead of Night statue with a big globe on his back. That area is going to be blocked off with a power door until you get in and you open the power. Then that becomes available as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I always try and do that. I always try. It's like a 3 lane system, left and right, and then your middle's your power door. That's just how I've done it. It's probably a weird way of doing things.
Oh no, that's like I think the best way of doing things. I've got this document that I've been writing. One day I might release it, but it's just like it's COD Zombies theory of making maps. So it's not like, oh, you want to press so and so keys when you're in Radiant. It's more of like
Mhm.
it's more of like that. It's just some maps have it where you spawn in one room like Shinonuma and then you go out to different areas and
Yes.
you can it'll branch off from there. Other maps are just kind of like these big circles with a line through them and you can go down one path or the other. They'll usually connect in two or three spots, but then once
Mhm.
you turn power on, a new middle area that takes you
That's
from
exactly that.
one end of the
Yep.
map to the other. I find that that's like a really good method and way to think about mapping and
Yeah.
how to just kind of like bring in that natural guide for players to go through a map.
Yeah. I totally agree.
I also think that your maps are kind of like have hidden verticality in them, particularly with Atonement. That's like a very vertical map if you think about it, but it's kind of like a sleeper vertical map because you go underground and you're not really thinking
Yeah, you go
about
underground. Yeah.
how
Yeah.
far you are both above and underground. How do you approach something that's like multi-layered like that without adding too much frustration in navigation?
The whole thing, like with Atonement, like I say, is essentially just a remake of Fabric Dern Toten. And the way I did Fabric, actually, the first room I built on Fabric Dern Toten was the Knack Dern Toten mystery box room, and that was the first thing I built. And I just thought, I can't use that. I can't just redesign Knacked. So then I built up from that, went up the level to the outside level. But when come to do uh Atonement, I cannot put Nacta and Totem back into this map. I can't do it again. The amount of releases that this map's had, I can't do it. So I started from the top and worked my way down, and the whole thing changed. And rather than it becoming a sewer, like what Fabric Done Totem had, like a sewer line, I thought, why am I doing mine carts? Do like a mine track and all of it, and then And building mines out of patches and shit like that, it's like it gets to the point where it's sometimes it get tricky because you think, have I got this? Is it too vertical? Will the zombies or will the player be able to climb this, or will they just get stuck? And it's such a weird thing to try and like get right. And then again, I like to have all my rooms to have at least one branching door from it, rather than I'm not one of these ones where you create a room just for purpose. Like a room, it's got to lead to something.
Mm.
You can put things in this room. You can put a perk machine or a mystery box location in this room, but there has to be another exit door from that room. Don't just create a room for the purpose of housing a perk machine. Otherwise, it's just like it's a dead room. It's a dead end. It's a dead zone as far as I was concerned. So the way I did it for Atonement, you go down the mine shaft, but then at this point, I was quite far left of the map as a top-down view goes. I'm thinking, how am I going to bring this back around again? I've got to get the players back to the surface, but without turning around. So then I create another mine shaft that kind of half spirals back in itself into the cellar of the bar, the tavern, which then you go up into the actual main part of the tavern, which opens back up again into the spawn room. And I was like, holy shit, that worked. That was weird. That like I didn't even plan for that to actually link as good as it did, but it just worked. And then from there, I added extra buildings outside, which you could climb up to, get different perks and stuff like that. But most of my thought process isn't a thought process. It's just a kind of wing it and try it. And verticality for me, I always struggle thinking, have I got enough verticality in this? Because you always see these cool trailers of people creating zombie maps, and you see in the trailer they're jumping off the building, shooting zombies at the same time. And I'm thinking, I want that. I want to create that. And I don't know if I ever have created anything as good as that. So when it comes to like say like Atonement, I stuck some buildings in there. There's a one of the buildings which is ripped directly from Shadows of Evil,
Oh
where one
yeah.
of the sword Cthulhu things is in Shadows of Evil. I created I didn't rip it because we didn't have the tools to rip it back then. So I recreated that by eyesight, basically. And then I thought, well, why do I make the top of this playable? Why do I make the top part playable? That'd be really cool. I'll stick a perk underneath and make the top playable. But again, with verticality, if you place a perk machine underneath where you're playing above, it automatically creates a clip point. So the players can't run in that anywhere near that because there's a clip automatically there for the perk machine. Then it goes, I don't even know how high this clip goes. It just goes on forever. So it's such a weird thing to try and think out for verticality for me personally. But it's an always last thing I think of. Like, I want to make this a high point or the low points of the map. And it always just seems to be a happy accident. It's just a happy accident most of the time for the stuff that I create.
Mhm. No, I always find that like verticality as well comes to me just last minute because I was I'm working on my new map I've been working on for a while, and I halfway through the process I was like, man, this is like a really tall map. Like this is at like it really you start from like the bottom area and then you just work your way up this giant castle. And I'm thinking I could use that to my advantage. So
Yeah.
I originally had like a spawn that was kind of in the middle ground, and I just stuck it on the bottom. And that just, I think that all tied it together. So just having these like interesting layouts, I feel you do this amazingly. Do you prefer to stick closely with like that classic Treyarch Zombies formula, or do you like to experiment with it with like new mechanics, features, or ideas?
I like to try and think of new ideas and mechanics and stuff like that. But like I say, I'll always try and stick to the 3-lane left and right power door in the middle type scenario the best I can. But there has times in the past where I try and come up with new ideas and think, oh, this is a cool mechanic. And 9 times out of 10, I'll be honest, my cool mechanic ideas, they never work. For instance, there's a map I created called Grit. I don't know if you ever played Grit.
I think I've played it. Maybe let me Grit. I think yeah, no, I've played this before.
So yeah, with that one, we came up with this idea for the perk machines to be individually powered rather because the map's a tiny map, and I thought I want to create a small map. I don't want to be like Nuketown size, that's too big, but I want a bit smaller than Nuketown,
Mhm.
and I want it to be like a fast paced action. But in reality terms, it didn't really work out the way I hoped it would. So we created this perk system idea where you would power the perk. You would have to kind of basically charge the perk, turn the power on for individual perks, and it was going to be like a soul box. You get kills next to the perk and it will power on, but eventually we got rid of that idea. So you turn the main power onto the map, and the little electric boxes, let's say, next to the perk machine become active, and you can just turn them on. It takes a while to turn them on. The little power bar goes up, and that perk will stay on. I think it stayed on for, in the very, very first rendition of the map, it stayed on for 3 minutes. The perk machine stayed on. So, and we had a camera system set up where I think it was one of the rooms, there was a room like a little security hut that showed you all the cameras of all the perk machines. And when that perk machine was on, the camera would be on so you could see the perk machine was active. And then after 3 minutes, it would deactivate, the camera would turn off, and you'd know, right, I've got to go back and return that perk on. But what that caused was people's frustration. I've already turned that perk on. Why have I got to turn it back on again? And it wasn't. And what we did was we said, right, once all the perk machines are on, you can now access Pack-a-Punch, which is a cool idea. We're like, that's cool. You've struggled this far into the map. You've turned all the perk machines on. Once all the perk machines are turned on, Pack-a-Punch now becomes active. Great idea. I love it. Write it down. Start scripting it. Which guy? I think it was Will Jones was the scripter for that map, and we did that. And through playtest, we're like, yeah, this is cool. This is a cool mechanic. This works. The perk machine's turned off. Right, shit, turn it back on. I need to Pack-a-Punch. And we didn't playtest it enough because those times where I was in the Pack-a-Punch room and a perk machine would turn off in the main map, I'm stuck in the Pack-a-Punch room, can't get my gun Pack-a-Punched, and I'm just stuck there like, well, that was a waste. Or you would put your gun into the machine, and as you're waiting on your gun coming out, the perk machine would turn off somewhere randomly in the map, and you'd lose your gun. And you're like, oh fuck! It's like that mechanic, which seemed like a good idea at the time, fundamentally, in the end, was more of a hindrance, and people just got frustrated. Like, I'm not playing that map. So I think I don't even know if we did change it. I know we changed the times that the perk machine stayed on from 3.5 minutes to about 7 minutes. So we doubled the time that they stayed on. And that was it. Oh, shit. Oh, my bad. So yes, when you're charging the perk machine power, all the zombies became sprinters. That was the hard part.
Oh,
that was just like,
yeah.
So you're powering this perk machine to get Jug, let's say, and every zombie sprinting at you, and you're having to like run away and run back, run away and run back. And in the end, we left it the way it is. I didn't think we changed it where the perks would ever turn off. They turned off after a longer period of time. But it was just one of those things where we should have done more testing. We should have got more feedback from the community before releasing it. But when you have these ideas, you think to yourself, oh, that's an awesome idea. That sounds cool. That works. It really works. But in actual reality, playtest, it doesn't work. It really doesn't. And it's best to like play test with as many people as you can. And I fall short of that all the time because I'll create a map, I'll get all this done, and I set deadlines, imaginary deadlines in my head that I want to meet. And then when that deadline's up, I'm like, right, release the map. Done. That's released. And everybody's like, dude, it's broken. That's broken. That doesn't work. You haven't tested that enough. I'm like, yeah, shit, yeah, I haven't. And I kind of like wash my hands with it and like, well, it's out there now. I've sent my child to school. It can fend for itself, basically.
No, how do you kind of like approach and handle criticism, both that's like constructive and negative from the community? And I know you say you just for that time you didn't implement any changes for that. Do you oftentimes come back and you're like, you know what, let me fix this issue?
I think now, as time's gone on, I take a lot more criticism, a lot more on board, and I listen to what more people have to say. I think back then when I first started doing these, I'm going to say arrogant in a way that I shouldn't have been arrogant. I should have been humbled, but I was arrogant because I had the mod tools, and it goes back to when got asked to be in the alpha. There was a lot of people in the community didn't like the fact that I was in the alpha program because there was better people out there who'd obviously been within World at War community for years. And this random guy, myself, comes into this community and they're like, why is this guy getting it and we haven't getting it? Mm-hmm. And automatically they had a hate for me. They had this instant disdain, and like they didn't like anything I did. Like there was a group of people that didn't like anything I did, or there maybe still is a group of people out there now, which is fine. You don't have to like everybody. So I kind of developed this like shield for myself where no matter what I created, I thought, no, it's better than you. It's always better than you. In my head, I thought I'm better than you.
Yeah, well,
it's a horrible way to think.
You had to protect yourself in those early days,
yeah.
Right?
That was basically what I was doing, and I didn't take criticism from anybody because I thought I knew best. I had the third map on the workshop, and it was getting thousands of downloads and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, yeah, screw you guys. Look what I've got. You haven't got that. And it was arrogance. And it was, when I look back now, I think, why were you like that? You were never raised to be a dickbag like that. You should have been humbled by this. You got that, and you should have took advice from people. I mean, there was some people just being downright nasty, which is fine. Yeah, fuck those guys. But it's like, I should have been more humble with the ones who are actually there to like say, well, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? And I'd always just thought, well, no, I know best. I know better than this. I know better than you. You don't have the alpha tools. And it was an arrogance thing. It really was. But now as I go on, I take as much criticism as I can, and I'll try new things. People say, well, maybe you should try this. Maybe you should switch that for that. And I used to always have this, like I say, it kind of goes back to what I say, I wanted to get my map done. I had this imaginary release date in my head. And let's say I was 2 days away from this release date, but someone came to me and says, oh, I think you should change that. Then like somebody else would say the same. Yeah, you should definitely change that part. In my head, I'd be like, well, no, I'm 2 days off release. I ain't going back and rescheduling or rearranging this one section just because you guys say so.
Mm-hmm.
But as of now, as time goes on, I realize, well, I don't know best. I would like to think I know best, but I don't know best. And it's good when some people come and say, change that because that does not work. Change this because that does not work. And it's partly one of the reasons why Operation Vacate is still in the limbo mode. It's not going to get finished because there's so many things wrong with it that I didn't listen the first time around, that now I read back on some of the feedback and some of the messages people have said who've played the test version. They're like, oh, you should change this, you should change that. And I was just like, no, that's fine, that stays. But when I look back and I think, actually, no, that should be changed. This should be changed. Yeah, I agree that should be done. Don't get me wrong. I don't always listen to everybody because not everybody is right. And I think everybody's fair to say that. You can't always be right. You can't always tell somebody that's wrong and expect them to just go, oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it is wrong. I do believe I've got conviction in myself that some of the stuff that I do create is the right way to create it.
Mm-hmm.
But as I've grown further into the community, I listen a lot more and I take on a lot more criticism as well. I still might be a bit of an arsehole, but I still take on the criticism and listen to it and pause what I'm doing for a while and go back and go, yeah, hang on, let's maybe try this instead of bullheadedly going the way I was originally going to go. So yeah, I think now as I go on, I have changed a lot and I take on as much criticism as I can. Like, instance yourself, some of the stuff you create looks absolutely fantastic. I look at it and think, I want to try and mimic that because I can never create it. Ask for help. There's no harm in asking for help from others.
I want to disagree with that last part because my style is literally copying other people's styles in a way and kind of putting my own twist on it. And you have influenced my style so much, so I'm just like, how could you want to copy me? I'm copying you, man. Like I'm doing what you're doing.
No one's copying me. That's the worst thing anybody can do is copy what I do.
Have you ever gotten like surprising or unexpected feedback from somebody that you kind of look up to, and did that change your approach to developing a part of a map?
Ooh. Let me think. That's a question. I'm trying to think who I would look up to in the community. I mean, I know there's also the big guy mappers. You had like Jay Bird and Seth Norris and all those big guys like Cornrow Wallace, all the big guys who like been doing this for years and stuff. And obviously Cornrow Wallace works for Turok. Personally, it probably will be Cornrow Wallace. His advice and some of his tips, his like gameplay advices that he could give, they go unnoticed sometimes. I mean, I know he's only released, I think, a couple of maps to the workshop and that, but he's done a lot of streams showing people how to create this and how to create that. And I remember when I was creating Operation Vacate, I was creating a staircase. And me personally, I made the staircase, it was like an L-shaped staircase. And I went down and down and he literally said, he dropped us a DM, he went, that staircase you created, you spent ages on it. You like put even these little welding points on, you made it look so cool. You used like the same style textures that Treyarch uses and stuff like that. He says, but you missed one major flaw in your design, is that it's an L-shaped staircase. And the way you had the room running, the room was like a straight line room with an L-shaped staircase at the end. He says it just kills the gameplay flow. It kills the momentum. Everything just stops when you hit that staircase. You got to go up and left. And it's like, all right, so how do you? He says, well, just make it straight, or keep the L shape, but put another L shape at the bottom as well. So half the stairs with another L shape. So you're basically running at the stairs rather than running and having to turn into the stairs, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about gameplay lines and like saying this. So when he was like giving this kind of advice, like try this, always think of like the fastest the fastest way to get from point A to point B without having to stop the player in its tracks or cause unnecessary barricades that aren't like technically meant to be there. And that was one of the best things that you see. Just gameplay lines of sight as well, are the major things you used to see. Always, if you can see, like taking back to like spawn rooms where you can see your thing in the distance. If you're in a room, you want to be able to see your next exit point, or at least have some sort of direction to that exit point, whether it be just even some like wood boards lying on the floor that kind of angle themselves towards, like as a kind of in the back of your mind, like that board is facing that way. Oh yeah, so you automatically assume to go that direction rather than just having these random scattered things around. Always trying lines of sight are always better than just a cluttered mess. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things he said to me, and I thought it was a really cool thing. That, and it was on a late morning stream for me. I think it was like 4:00 in the morning. I was getting ready to go to work, and I caught one of his streams, and I just popped into his stream, and then he messaged me directly and like was talking about different things. I thought, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. An actual Treyarch dev is actually like speaking to me and giving me some advice.
That's just so sick and awesome. I need to know some goddamn Treyarch devs, man. That is amazing. I like listening to that and you talk about that. Like I actually have like an L-shaped staircase in my map, and now I'm thinking, oh, I gotta change that.
Do it, yeah, do it. This is the thing. Like when someone would say stuff like that in the past to me, they'd be like, "Yeah, you should change that," and you're like, "Nah, I've already done it now. I've already spent like 6 hours making the staircase look cool. I'm not changing it." But if it's going to help the gameplay flow, what's the harm? Mm-hmm. What's another 6 hours?
Yeah. Do you find that you're always like learning new tips and advice like that, or do you think you've got a good middle ground where you're very knowledgeable and then you could just kind of take a new piece of info as it comes along, or just like leave it alone?
I think I would say I'm quite middle of the road type stuff that you can always learn. Every day is a school day, and you always can pick up new things, whether it's new things to do with the tools or new tricks to use the tools to speed up workflow. But I would say middle ground wise for map design and like how to detail stuff like that, I think I'm pretty like well versed, know how to create it. I'm not as good as some, but I'm not as bad as others. I'm a middle of the road, jack of all trades type of guy, except I can't do scripting, which I wish I could do.
Yeah, me neither. No, scripting's such like I look at it and I imagine like it's the same feeling that scripters look at like Radiant and they're just like, what the hell?
Aye. Definitely. I know some scripters who literally cannot map, and they look at maps like, how did you know that one texture and that other blend texture paired up with that crack texture would work well together? And it's like, well, it's just trial and error. And they're like, yeah, it's the same with scripting. You try a code, if it doesn't work, you try another code. But to me, coding, it's not explanatory enough. So you could have all these different, I don't even know the terminology of any script, any JC, CSC stuff we use. And they can have all these different words, these different terminologies. And I'd be like, well, how do you know that word does that? How do you understand that one word with that little bracket sign with the semicolon does that one function? Where does it tell you this? And how do you know? Because sometimes you might read it and go, well, check up on that. You can go with this glossary index, and it'll give you an index of all these different syntax or whatever the hell they're called. And you might like, oh yeah, that does that. It's like, but how do you know it does that? Yeah. How do you know this? I'm one of these ones where I like things visually. Like if you could have scripting, you would type something, and let's say I don't even know what I would type for scripting. You would pick up a key, and that key would open the door. If you could script something like that, as I was typing it, I would love to have a visual aid of a little GIF playing, show me what I was typing, how it would react in game, so I knew exactly what I was doing. Because otherwise, I'm just looking at random text, and I'm just like, I haven't got a clue. It's just numbers to me.
I want somebody to make like a tool where it's kind of like the Unreal Engine kind of like nodes that you just kind of put on a plane.
Yeah, the blueprint stuff.
Yeah, the blueprints or something like that. But make it even easier, where it's just like, okay, I'm gonna add a pickup to this particular model, and then it'll know that, and it can flag that. Or I don't know, flag. I don't know the terms, but
yeah, I'm the same, mate. I'm the same.
I think I could definitely get into scripting if it was like that, where I could just be like, this block goes here, this block goes here.
And there's some, like you'd have the old school Microsoft paperclip in the bottom corner saying, you've made a mistake, you've done that wrong.
No, I think that would be the best. Just having the an easy way for mappers to at least
Oh,
make
for sure,
basic scripts.
definitely.
I should get
I need it.
Fnatic to do that.
I'm absolutely terrible at scripting. I can copy and paste as many things as I want. I can use the same script 1,000 times, and that script can fail. And I'm like, well, I've used it before, and I look at it, and I can read it over and over. I'm like, well, why is it not working? And someone will like read it back and go, yeah, you missed a decimal, or you missed an equal sign, or a semi bracket, or some shit. I'm like, but I've copied and pasted it. Why is it not working? I'm terrible with it.
Even like stuff you can find on like Devra where it's like simple free perk Easter egg. I'm like, okay, let me drag and drop and it doesn't work. I can't get a
Yeah,
solution. I don't know what I've done wrong.
I get frustrated with scripting. I get so frustrated with it. It's ridiculous. I've got no patience. And these people who can do both, these elite people who can do scripting
Oh
and mapping,
yeah. Oh my
I'm like,
gosh.
oh God, fuck you. I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous.
No, anytime I like find somebody who like knows how to script, I'm instantly like, Tell me, like, like how, like, what is it like on the other side?" I just know it's like mapping to me is just like messing around with Legos. It's just like putting shit
Exactly.
together,
Yeah.
and then scripting. I
Yeah.
just find it's like that's the actual work that is put into a map. Not that like when you're doing high detail you're just like you're making everything that can be
What it is.
work at times, but it's
Yeah. The
like
scripting is what brings a map to life.
mhm.
That's what I think. And I even like simple little things with, I mean, it's been what, 2 years since I actually physically touched mod tools, other than coming back periodically between different things. But like to fully commit myself to a new map, I was constantly having to go load up all maps to look at like a zombie spawn. How do you spawn that zombie again? Was the KVPs on a zombie spawner to get it to come through a barrier, or to what do you got? I was like, how can I not remember this? I've been doing this for years. It's like it's a simple line, a little noteworthy or whatever the fucking thing it is. And even now, off the top of my head, I could not tell you how to set up a zombie spawn. I couldn't. But then you have these people out there who are just like, yep, that's it, that's that. And I'm like, fuck, I can never remember that. But I could tell you how you can make a nice wall.
Oh yeah.
That's about all I can get.
No, I'm like the same way. I'm like, well, I have no idea how to make a door, but I can make a door frame look nice. I can make it look cool.
Same. Yeah, same. There's so many things. I mean, for instance, one of the maps that I did with Zero, we made for the YouTuber Relax and End. It was a commission-based job. And the idea I wanted to have this like kind of like a diagonal door bunker, as if it was like an outdoor bunker where you like a cellar bunker from the outside. And I thought, right, I want the doors to open on what would be the vertical axis of the doors, but they're slanted already, the doors. So what have I got to do to make these doors follow a normal motion? Whether it's, you should have seen the state of these doors opening. Some of them just disappeared off the map. I was like, where's that door gone? It was literally copy and paste from the left door to the right door, but switch the values to minus or plus, and one door just fucked off. It just disappeared. And I was like, where the hell's that gone? And the other door wasn't even right either. The other door was like upside down. I'm like, but this is simple stuff. And I was like, Zero, you need to fix this. And he was like, oh yeah, sure, just change those values. Boom, done. What? I was like, how did you know that was going to fix that? Like, I don't get it. I do not get it. Making doors, fuck doors.
Oh no, yeah. I've anytime I set up doors in a map, I always have like another test map right there because I know if I will fuck up the scripting and I'm just going, okay, I'm not gonna wait 20 minutes to compile and link a map just for the
Yeah.
doors to be screwed up again.
Yep, I've done that. I have a test map open with all the different things in, like a door, zombie spawns. What other stuff can we have? Like a power door. How do you do power doors? Right, I'll check that map, check those KVPs. Yep, that sounds good. Yep, copy that over, and still it doesn't work half the time.
Well, I wanna kind of circle back to you taking a break from the mod tools for 2 years. What made you decide to come back?
I'm going to say not boredom, but I was just seeing what other people were creating. I was always in the Discord, and I had my Discord open, and I'd see the other Discords. I left most of the big Discords, and I came back to them. I mean, the last 2 years, I had a pretty rough ride in life, and that I'm not getting into that for a podcast of zombies because that'll scare everybody away. But yeah, my life changed massively, and I was left in this position where I now have a lot more free time than I previously had, and I was seeing all these things that people were creating again, and all these stuff, these cool things. I'm thinking, oh, we had these new tools. We have different ways of doing things now. People know this, people know that. We can create stuff a lot easier. We have all these packs. We have DevRaw, which has got all these free packs on for people to use. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get my some of that. I want some of that action. I want to start creating stuff again, because it's a rush and it's a real thrill to create stuff.
Mhm.
And when you post a screenshot of what you're creating, to see people comment and say, that looks awesome, that looks cool. And I kind of missed that. And I thought, I'm ready to come back, but I want to come back for something that I want to do. So, like I say, I was making Operation Vacate with Dobby, and the map itself, I enjoyed making. It was a really cool map and that, and it went in the kind of the style of Cold War. We were aiming for a Cold War-ish esque style map, and I just wasn't feeling it. Once it was all said and done, the map was pretty much complete, and I just didn't feel it. And I don't know if it's because I played it that much and I just thought, nah, I'm leaving this. I'm putting that to bed for the moment, and I'll give myself a long window. Initially, I was only going to take a few months break, but then obviously life happened. 2 years later, and I was like, right, let's do this. I've got some free time now. Let's load up Vacate. Let's have a look what I can do with this. Dobby had been sending a list of changes that need to happen to make the map really cool. And I just looked at it from an outside perspective. And I was like, this is not fun. I'm not even enjoying playing this map. Like, I want to be able to play a map where it looks visually appealing and it's really, really interesting to play. And I just thought, no, screw it. So I went back through my history of like maps I've done. And I thought, well, I remade Fabric Dern Toten as Atonement. And then my next map was the Ochilon. Could I remake the Ochilon? I was thinking, I'm going to load up the Ochilon map. It's one of the only map files I had saved. I lost a lot of them on one of my hard drives failed. And the Ochilon was one of the only map files that I had saved. And I loaded it in, and I just was immediately hit with like the worst mapping ever. The probes, I mean, I didn't even think the map had been probed. It was ridiculous. I had probes just randomly in walls, inside of brushes and stuff like that, or stretching into separate rooms. And I just looked at it and I thought, yeah, this is the one. This is the one I'm going to take again and make it how I see fit and how I want it to be. I'm not going to set any deadlines. I'm not going to plan anything for release dates, anything like that. I'm just going to go at it until I'm happy with this and some sort of really nice map where I can just go, right, that's what I've created. That's what I've been working on for the past year, past 2 years, however long it takes me. That's what I'm going to do. And that's what brought me back. It was the want to create again, and also the need personally, because I've had such a shit 2 years, that I wanted that little validation again. Does that
Mhm.
make sense? You
No,
know?
yeah. No, totally.
And I wanted that again. Yeah.
I'm, like, actually very happy that you have come back, because now I'm just kinda, like, lurking in the show off of the Mod
Of my
Tools
server.
Discord, and I'm
All
in your
right.
server, I'm just looking at screenshots, I'm like, "Fuck, dude, that looks awesome."
I do think it is.
I'm always, like, giddy at new information of any map, but particularly the Ochilon. I'm just like, "Oh, dude, this is gonna be one of the best maps. It looks amazing already, and I can't wait for it to come out." You were like streaming some early development of the Ochilon in your server, and I kind of joined in, and you were like showing the old prefabs, and you're just like, "What the fuck was I thinking?"
Oh, it's terrible. It's horrendous. Some of the shit that I made, I was like, and that's the thing. I was never told. Well, I was probably told by people, but I think by that point, people were like, he ain't going to listen. He's just going to do his own thing. And I was like, yeah, I am. Yeah, fuck you. I'm going to do my own stuff. And when I created it, I was like, yeah, this is badass. This is cool. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't horrendous. But looking at it again, you think, wow, how did I even like, wow, that doesn't make any sense. Even the layout didn't make sense. Like, I kept the 2 lanes thing. Like, you had the main entrance to the school, then you had the side entrance to the school through the shower block, and there was a door in the middle that took you to the basement, which was a power door. But then there was a separate power door behind that power door, and some of the choices that I made for that map didn't quite work well. I'm not saying it's a terrible map, but detail wise, it was probably one of the worst detail maps that I've seen. Visually, it was horrendous, and that's why I think I owe it to myself and to the community to make it a good map. I think.
I think you're already doing a great job at that. Just
Thank
like
you
I
very
said,
much.
anytime I see it, I'm just like, holy shit. I see you're leaning more towards a Black Ops 6 aesthetic for the map. What's it like, kind of just bringing the BO6 vibe into Black Ops 3?
It's a weird one because when Black Ops 6 was or teased, or we saw the videos, and that one the only map we saw, well, oh, we know we saw Terminus and we saw Liberty Falls, but I think Liberty Falls was the one we got the most view of, and everybody hated it. Everybody instantly, nope, this is not a zombies map. It's got no vibe of a zombies map. But then when it released, it was just such a fun map to play. I thoroughly enjoyed just playing Liberty Falls. It's just so easy, pick up and play map, and I love the aesthetics of it. How it was like modern day look, and the nice clear skies, and it was a really nice sunny bright map. But it was still a zombies map at heart. It still had zombie elements, but it was just a nice, clean, easy pick up and play map.
Mm.
And that's kind of what I wanted the Ochilon to be, where it's like, yeah, it's going to have a really cool, crazy Easter egg, but I want it to look visually where it's like, yeah, this is good. And anybody can get in it and play it and then just like enjoy it for what it is. And I'm trying to lean away from like nighttime maps, because I feel the whole nighttime map as a zombie map is overdone at this point. And the whole saturated, crazy colored maps and stuff like that. And I just want to just have something that look clean and a bit fresh. And I think have kind of got there, but I still haven't finished the mapping stages, so we will see as it progresses. But that is one of the real reasons why I stretched towards the Black Ops 6 Liberty Falls style, because it just looks so clean and like airy, and there's a lot of player space. And I like the idea of like having a lot of area to run around in, because usually my maps are quite not confined, but you're more restricted to a certain section or a certain corridor, and you wouldn't really like, for instance, the Ochilon inside the school. There's not much reason for you to head into the school on the old map, other than to complete Easter egg quests. Whereas now, when I create the school, I want to kind of create it so there's going to be some big open rooms, big areas where you can kind of stay in those areas and feel that you're using every element of the map as well. So, like, you have outside, which is the big car park with the ripped off Liberty Falls Church. That's a good area to train. But I want to also have the same on the other side, where it's going to be like the little lake area and the little foresty area. I want the kind of similar vibe where no matter where you are in the map, you're not confined to just be stuck running through something. So I don't want the people, I don't want to, for instance, I don't want to spend like, I don't know, months and months and months creating the school to look absolutely fantastic as best I can make it, just for players to run through it once, complete an objective, then come back again to the spawn area and just train in the spawn area.
Mm.
I want to try and keep everything like an equal balance of like play space, if that makes any sense. And I feel Black Ops 6, especially Liberty Falls, achieved that. For me personally, I could be completely wrong to what other people think in the community, but for me, I think the Black Ops 6 style, every aspect and every area of most of the maps, especially Liberty Falls and Terminus, you feel that you need to be in those areas rather than just run through those areas. If that makes any sense?
Yeah, no, makes perfect sense. Like I love Terminus and I'll play the hell out of Terminus, but at the same time, I will hop on Liberty Falls and I just love, it's zombies. I love zombies.
It is,
And
yeah.
Liberty Falls is like the perfect just kind of get in and play, have a good time. If you want to do the Easter egg, go
Exactly.
ahead. So when I see like you're like going for that Liberty Falls aesthetic and just kind of like these areas that everything is kind of playable and you're not confined. I'm just like, yeah, that's really awesome. I do want to
Thank you.
know about the size difference between the original and the remake. Are you worried about making it too big?
I was actually like thinking of that the other day when I was actually like looking at the left hand side of the map that I haven't actually started yet, which is the foresty picnic area. But I'm not worried that it's going to be too big. I wanted it to be a very large map. But the old version of the map had a forest area at the side of the school, which you had to make your way through the school to get to. It was terribly done. The mapping was horrendous. I used like to make hills and bumps in the terrain. I would just draw little patches, 4x4 patches, and stretch the center up and just place them around to make that was the terrain. Rather than just having one terrain patch and morph that, I would create these little tiny square patches and create like let's say a little hill prefab and just dot them around the place. And it just looked terrible when you put like a daylight skybox on it. But in nighttime, place that down, stick a rock on it and a tree. Looks good. It looked good, but it just didn't work well. And there was no real reason for why that was there. It was just that side of the school had this little forest with a weird log cabin that made no sense for it to be there next to a school. And when I stripped it back and I thought, right, get rid of that side, which has got all the log cabin and the little lake on it, put that at the front of the school. So, in a sense, the elements of the old version of the map are kind of all still there, but they're just moved around a little bit. So there will be a bit bigger areas, because I think the areas that I had in the previous map didn't really warrant the players, like I said before, to stay in these areas much longer than they needed. So now if I expand the areas, make them a little bit bigger, but keeping in the same feel as what the previous map had, then I don't think it's going to be too much bigger. The school itself probably will be bigger as a whole. There'll be lots of areas that you can't access, obviously, for Vista reasons and things like that.
Mhm.
But I'm trying to get away from making these confined maps, because all my maps at the moment, when I look back, they're very, very narrow corridors, and they're very, very not claustrophobic, but they're not as grand as I would like them to be. And I just thought, screw it, with the Ochilon, I'm going to try and make it work. I'm going to try and do that. Whether it takes as years to make it, because I know optimization is going to be a bitch, but I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try it. And like I say, the elements of the original map are still there. They're just reorganized a bit differently. And that's all.
Yeah, I definitely optimization. I always save that for last. Like I don't
Oh,
even think
definitely.
I optimized Evil Dead when I made it. I just kind of because I figured, it's a small map. I'm not gonna culk everything you don't see. But yeah, and it's kind of like the same way with Army of Darkness right now. I'm like, oh, I'll culk it at the end. Like I'm not gonna do that right
Yeah.
now.
I've tried corking before. I've tried like starting a map and using cork and just literally corking the face that you're not going to see. But then I'll end up selecting another texture and draw a brush for that and think, oh, well, I'll cork that later. I'll cork this bit later. And I never do cork it. And I'm sure somebody, I can't remember who, I'm sure they said corking in this engine doesn't make that much of a difference anymore as what it used to do in World at War. Same as like the portal effects, like the Umbra tomes and stuff like that you used to have to use them in World at War. So if you were inside, you'd put like an Umbra tome over something that was outside, so the engine wasn't rendering it.
Mhm.
Whereas now it auto does that. So if you're inside a building, it's not rendering stuff outside the building. If that makes any sense. I'm pretty sure someone said that, and the same applied for corking. That it's not essential as it used to be. Yeah, you could do it, and you probably will save some frames, but I don't think. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I probably get hate in comments of this, but I could be wrong. I don't think corking is as important as it used to be.
How do you go about optimizing a map then? Because culking is like the one thing I know, and then the rest of it I'm just like I don't know. I'll take away
I don't
models,
know.
I guess.
Yeah, I know when it comes down to optimization now, even just recently, I was so ignorant to LODs, like levels of detail with the models and stuff. I was so ignorant to them. Like when I made the Black Ops 3 packs that I released years ago, they didn't come with LODs. So everybody was putting these models into their map that had like full detail from the furthest distance. And the map was the engine's rendering these things in the distance that don't need to be rendered. But now, like obviously, level of detail on your models helps massively. And I've just, like I said, I released that foliage pack from Black Ops 6 and made sure every tree, every bush, every leaf has got a level of detail on it. But even me personally now, optimization, I'm I'm not the best at it. I was testing the Ochilon, was it yesterday? And I ran to the mystery box, just the mystery box. It's against a plain wall, and I was losing frames. And I was like, well, there's nothing in the screw. There's nothing actually being rendered other than the mystery box and the wall that's behind. It's like, how am I losing frames? And I don't know. I wish I could say I had an answer for optimization. I really don't know. I know what you're meant to do, but for me, the things that you're meant to do just does not seem to work. I don't know what it is. I really don't.
No, yeah, I'm afraid I'm gonna run into that issue later on and just completely have an unoptimized map, but it works on my computer. I hope I hope it will work
Well,
on others.
that's the thing as well. That's the ignorance, isn't it? You think, well, it
Yeah.
works on me. Fuck everybody else.
Yeah. So, what are the goals for the Ochilon? Is it just to have like a simple remake and tell the same story, or are you going to be kind of telling like a different narrative with this version of the map?
It's kind of in the same story, but more elaborate. So the previous storyline was so cheesy, it was ridiculous. I mean, some of the audio quotes, what the headmaster, the main guy of the map would be saying was so cheesy. And it's all focused around the fact of the headmaster back in the late 80s, early 90s. He was dabbling in dark arts and that, resurrections and uh, devil worship and stuff like that. He has like a secret lair under, not a lair, like a secret area under the school which you'd frequent, and there'd be other people there that were part of this cult that were worshipping the devil and trying to resurrect the devil. And as it happens, it works during the 80s and 90s, resurrects, and literally the whole town area is kind of cast into limbo. Everything's dead, everything's wiped out. So that's why I've tried to get the models from Liberty Falls, like the car models, because they're like based in the 90s and stuff. So the whole idea is that the map is frozen in limbo. In a sense, not frozen in time, but like the foliage is still growing, things are still living there. Everybody's dead,
Mhm.
basically, because of like the headmaster's done all this crazy satanic stuff, and he's basically resurrected hell in that little kind of bubble, which is the school and the surrounding village area. Obviously, I'm not going to include the surrounding village because that would be crazy, but you'll see that in the vista. But when I get to like the more detailed parts, you'll be able to tell that like something's happened. That the whole, I want the feel of the map to feel like something's really bad has happened in this area. And through storytelling, I'd like to again make it seem, probably giving a bit away here than I should, make it seem that the headmaster's trapped in the other dimension,
Mhm.
the hell dimension, whatever you want to call it, and you're there to try and free him. But really, as it happens, you're going to free him, and he's going to be the boss. Basically, he's going to be the boss guy of the map. However that happens, I don't know. And the other side of the coin is you got to free the souls of the town village that were like sucked into hell and let them like their forever torment. You need to like let that be released, essentially.
Yeah, a little bit of Shadows of Evil kind of a thing. Little Blood of the
Yeah,
Dead.
basically a mix of all that. So that is kind of the rough narrative I'm aiming for. It's based around the similar style as what the original Ochilon was, the headmaster and all this. But like, I mean, for Christ's sake, I had the thing in the original Ochilon with a tree, a soul tree that the students would pray at the soul tree, and it would take their souls. I was like, what the fucking kind of what drugs were I smoking back then to like come up with that shit? Because that doesn't make any sense. Like, even as a zombie lore fan, it's so wild and just incomplete of a story that could be fabricated, I think. So I'm trying to keep it a little more grounded. Obviously, devil worshiping is just crazy anyway, but like a little bit more believable. Obviously, it's still going to have massive fantasy elements into it and stuff like that. And it similar story, but a little bit more thought out, let's say.
Mhm. That's not sounds super cool. I'm very interested in to seeing how that comes out because I don't know,
So
you're
am I.
you're a great storyteller. So I'm gonna let you do your thing with that. I'm gonna let you cook, and I can't wait for it to release. I want to know, what do you have planned for after Ochelon? Have you thought that far, or are you gonna go back and maybe revisit Operation Vacate, or are you gonna work on something new?
I have no idea. I don't even know how long Ochelon's going to take to complete. It could take years. And afterwards, I usually what I do, what I've done in the past is once a map's complete, I kind of just like zone out from the tools for a bit. I take at least a few months off and just relax because
Just
it
decompress.
yeah, because it gets like a massive strenuous task leading up to a release of a map, especially like the months leading up to it because there's so much happening. The map's gaining so much traction, and there's all these elements, all is finely tuned to make it all work. And then once it's released, you're like, oh, you can breathe, you can watch people play it. Now that's one of the main things I love to do is watch people play my map. It's so surreal to watch others enjoy what I've created. And he has one. He has a mind blower, which everybody who creates maps already knows this, but it's hard to explain. I will never in my life get to experience any of my maps.
Oh yeah.
You know, like, as someone new, it's like I'll never get that experience. Or some people are playing like, wow, this is awesome. Where do I go next? Where do I go next? Because I created it. So I never get to experience it, which is sad, but also so like it's just sad. No, it's just sad. It's upsetting that you can't experience your own map.
No, I'm the same way, but I try my best to experience it through other people. Like when I was developing Evil Dead for the first time, I had like a TV in my room, and if I had like friends over for a party or something, I would just like plug my PC into the TV, and then they'd be like, "Can I play the map?" I'm like, "Here you go." And then I would just kind of be sitting behind them, watching them figure it out. And that was like great for just like one, like learning how people play the map is kind of just like a play test. And I'm just like,
Oh,
okay, how
definitely, yeah.
how are they moving around the space? Can they find power easily? what are they telling me right now that I can fix in this early stage? And another thing that people don't really talk about is when you release the map, like I was not expecting, well, one, I was not expecting for it to blow up at all. And and the other was
It's cool.
the
It's an awesome map. Why wouldn't it?
because well, I think it's kind of a shit map, in my personal
Oh,
opinion.
anything Evil Dead, Ash Williams, Bruce Campbell, everything. Yeah, it's a win-win for me.
Oh, thank you. I'm blushing right now. But another thing is just like seeing like YouTubers and like people live streaming the map. Like I remember I released it and then I went to work. And then at work I got a text from a friend who was like, someone's like I found the first streamer playing your map. I looked on it and like
Yeah,
it was just these two guys and they were like, okay, this map just released. And I was just
that's
watching
awesome.
them. I was like, what? What the fuck? Like, what the hell?
It's so cool, and it's like I said, it's so surreal, and sometimes it can be a bit frustration for me when I'm watching people play the map. I'm like, no, you're doing it wrong. I'm like, I want to scream like you're doing that wrong.
Mhm.
Or I've been in streams where people have told the streamer what to do next. And I'm like, no, don't spoil it. Let them find that themselves. I want them to struggle. I want them to, it took me months to write that bit. I want them to struggle. Don't just give them the clues. It's such a weird thing. It's awesome.
I can't really take like a like positive feedback all too well. So when like I'm watching like a streamer video and they're like, "This new map is awesome," I'm like, "No, it isn't." I
No,
don't
you're full of shit.
know. It's weird because like I'm proud of the work I made and I'm happy with it. And sometimes I'll go back and play it and I'll find it charming. But then when I think about it more, I'm like, oh, I messed up the prefabs. The sound is bad in certain areas.
Aye,
You can't change the round change music. Some of the
yeah,
doors are a bit too pricey. I'm just like, I can't think about it like too much. I can enjoy it, but it's that weird
yeah.
thing of just like looking back at something and then only seeing like the negatives about it. Do you find yourself going
But
back to old maps of yours and doing the same thing, or are you a bit more appreciative?
all the time. I'm always thinking, shit, I should have done that differently. That is terrible design idea. That's a terrible way. And I think it's more of a comparison thing. So like I can release a map and then maybe a week later somebody else will release another map. I'm like, God, they've done something cool. They've got this cool element in the map. Why have I not thought of that element for my map? They've done that now. Everybody's saying their map is absolutely fantastic. It's amazing. They said the same for mine, but I still don't take that as validation. It's again, I just don't see it the way other people can see it. And
Mhm.
sometimes I don't know if it's whether just people are being nice or they're just genuinely being nice or are they genuinely being sincere. I don't know. And I still to this day will not, like yourself, take the positive criticism as well as I should. But I'm always negative on myself for things that I do. It's weird. It's like you say, you go back through old maps and you think, yeah, I should have done that. And you touched briefly on like door pricing. I've always been the one to try and keep door price. Again, stretching back to the whole left route, right route. If you're all aiming to, those routes are aiming for the same end point, whether it be the power switch or pack a punch, your door prices on either side have got to match up. You can't have one route being cheaper than the other route because players are never going to go the other route.
Mhm.
You understand what I mean?
No, yeah, I did that kind of a thing with Evil Dead because I wanted it to be like a two-way spawn. Like you spawn in and you have these two routes. But the second one just took you right to the power room. So I was like, okay, shit.
Yes.
I gotta make that door like 3,000 points, and then the other doors will kind of like equal that amount. So
That's
I
yes.
made it like you're
Uh,
spending the same amount of points, but one's more direct.
yeah. I remember. I think I probably messaged you and mentioned that to you when I played the map the first time round. So I was like, that door's severely expensive compared to the other doors. And in my personal experience, I try and balance it,
Hmm.
have the equal amount of doors. Maybe if one's going to be a little bit more than the other, because you've only got 3 doors on one side and 2 on the other, that's fine. But the way you did it, you had 1 door and then like 4 doors. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's nice to try and get a good balance because I find that people aren't going to want to try and get, because to me, zombies is all about advancing. You're advancing to the next stage. Now, if you see a door for 3,000 and a door for 500, you're always going to aim for that 500 door because you know what's behind that door for 500. Maybe a weapon, maybe a mystery box, maybe a perk. The door for 3,000, I ain't going to look at that one. Not going to look at it.
Yeah.
That's my personal way of looking at it.
Mm.
Everybody's different, got their own opinions, but I've always been like try to keep things equal, and it's kind of symmetry. I like things to be symmetrical when I create a map, and I shouldn't. I try and keep things symmetrical, and lots of the times other like mappers, for instance, Jaybird, when he created one of the Christmas theme maps, was is it Ski Resort?
I think he made like ski resort and then extinction.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, the ski resort map. I was like, how did you like? None of this could be done on the grid. This is so offset. Everything's offset on different angles. The buildings were all on different angles,
Hmm.
and I was like, how do you work that? Because I literally have the grid space, and I keep things as symmetrical as I possibly can. And then he did this like crazy like slopes up and down, and there's the ski slope coming down with a lift and shit. And I'm like, that would warp my brain looking on that on the grid. Back then, I was thinking that is insane. Now I try and veer a little bit away from doing things off the grid as well, because it looks natural when things are done off the grid in game, but when you're mapping in Radiant, it's a pain in the arse.
Oh no, yeah.
It's a pain in
It's
the
it's
arse.
an absolute fucking travesty working off grid. And like I
Oh,
know a couple people who when they're mapping, they go to like the smallest like
that's me.
grid
That's
you
I
could
do
do.
that.
And I'm just like, please click 3 or 4. Like I can't like I'm gonna break.
I'm terrible for that.
I think working off grid, there's a cheesy workaround I found where you just kind of like make it aligned in the prefab, and then you just kind of rotate the prefab in
No,
the
that works. Yeah,
in like outside of it. And
yeah,
I find like if I'm working off grid, I'm usually working on grid in a prefab.
that works. That works a lot better.
I want to kind of circle back on making maps and inspiration that comes from making maps. Are there any like particular like games, movies, or real world locations that influence your design? Because when I'm playing Overload and I'm thinking about, maybe starting to make an Evil Dead map, and you're in a cabin, I'm like, oh, this kind of reminds me of Evil Dead, and you go outside and there's the Delta and the chainsaw,
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh
yeah,
shit, it's right there.
yeah. That's what literally was my train of thought with that. The cabin was built, and I was like, this just looks so much like an Evil Dead cabin. I've got to put, I've got to put the Delta in there. Got to do that. It's got to be done.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, real life locations as it goes, the only map that I've done, actually, sorry, two maps, two. That'd be, yeah, I'm gonna say two maps, maybe more. The Ochilon, the original Ochilon, the school is the Back to the Future school.
Really?
Yep, I designed it off that because my favorite film of all time, which is weird, I've never made a map on it, is Back to the Future. I absolutely love that trilogy. And when I made the Ochilon, the original idea for it was to recreate the Back to the Future school. And that's so if you ever saw a screenshot of the Ochilon side by side of the school from the Back to the Future, it's identical. Well, it's as best as identical as I could have made it back in the day. And that's one of the maps where I used inspiration from movies. The second one was my Christmas map, the Studio 115, which is based on, is it Bill Murray's Scrooged?
I think
You
I
seen that?
think yeah, I've seen the movie. I'm trying to think of the locations in particular.
It's just basically the movie set with the streets.
Oh
So
yeah,
the
yeah.
movie set is basically like the streets of a Christmas town, and the actual names that I give the streets, I've got like street signs are names from inside the movie. I think those are the two maps off the top of my head that I remember that I based around loosely used some elements of movies that I liked
Mhm.
to actually complete the map.
Yeah, but I'm also seeing like you always take inspiration from like different games. Like in Atonement, you have the Shadows of Evil area, and then Overload, you have a bit of Transit mixed in there. What makes you feel the need to just be like, I love this area. Let me try to revamp it and bring it in and make it fresh.
If I'm being honest, it's one for lack of ideas. I'm thinking what would fit there. Check out some maps. Yeah, that's a rough idea. That's a rough size of the area I'm aiming to recreate. Yeah, let's just recreate that. But like that's essentially what I did for the atonement part, which was the Shadows of Evil bit. I had that little tunnel area, and I was like, actually, this reminds me of Shadows of Evil. So now I'll just go into Shadows of Evil, look at it, and go, oh shit, yeah, this is basically what Shadows of Evil looks like. Let's just recreate it. Let's like a bit of homage, to the game that it's come from. Let's put that back into my map. That was what this essentially was the idea for that. Overload, believe it or not, the only reason I did Overload is because a Robert doing, a Robert, or whatever you say his name, did Daybreak.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Daybreak is phenomenal, man.
I love Daybreak. That's like one of the influences that helped with Army of Darkness in a way. Even though it's like a snow map, but it's just like the way
Yeah,
it's in the daytime and everything that really helped
it was
me.
unreal. I remember playing it and I was thinking, this could have been an official released map on Black Ops 4, and I would not known any different. I would never
Mhm.
once thought a custom map I had designed this. It was just so impeccably well done, well designed. Everything worked, everything flowed well. It just had that complete feel. Knowing that something feels complete is like a whole package, and you're experiencing it for the first time and say, "Yeah, I like this. This is good." And that's what I wanted with Overload. And I was thinking, right, he's created a section from Transit. I'm going to create a section from Transit. And then you go through the list of the things that have been created already. So you got Bus Depot. The amount of times people have created Bus Depot, I've lost count. Then you think, well, what's next? You have Diner. Well, Daybreak is essentially just Diner. Then where do you go from that? You have Town. Town's been remade a few times. Um, and the only other one that hadn't been redone was the power station. And I thought, screw it, I'm going to do the power station. I know Maury did that. Um,
Mhm.
the
Yeah, the Mori and Mori Rebirth. Yeah, they had
well,
the
yeah. I'm trying to
little
think of the guy
section
who
in there.
made them. Mine's just totally gone blank.
I think it was Emox.
Emox, that's it. That's the guy. Yeah, Emox, Master Titus, or whatever. Yeah, he created those maps, and he used the little section of the power station area. And I thought I'm going to go one step further and create the whole underside of it with the lab area and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And that was the reason why I did that. Again, like I say, because Robert did Daybreak, and I wanted to be kind of ride the coattails of something so cool that maybe my map would be is in the similar vein where people say, "Oh, have you played Daybreak? Yeah, but you should play Overload. It's like the next best thing type thing." It never was because it was janky as fuck Overload.
Oh, what are you talking about? I love Overload.
But that was my kind of thought involved. And we've got some cool mechanics in there. I mean, the way the pack a punch comes down and stuff, I really love that mechanic. But that was basically what I did there. It was just kind of trying to ride the coattails of other creators, essentially. It's as terrible as an answer that is basically how I do things.
Oh no, I've built my entire zombies knowledge base of just kind of like I said, copying other people. Like if you like look at least the newer maps that I'm making, like Army of Darkness and a few others, like I'm pretty much just doing what he did in Clinic of Hell and Die Rise because I think
Right.
those maps just look amazing.
Unreal. Absolutely outstanding.
I think a really cool thing that you do for almost all your maps is you have just something completely unique to that, whether it be a perk or a wonder weapon. How do you kind of get started with like thinking what's going to be this map's new thing?
But I was actually thinking of this the other day, like what for the Ochilon, what's going to be new? What can I put into this map that people are going to be like, ooh, that's a new element, that's a new Madgaz, such and such, whether it's a wonder weapon or a perk. And it started on Fabric where I was like, right, we're creating a new map. I'm one of the first people to create maps. Let's stick some perks in there. And what I should have done, because I had those three perks, I had Banana Colada, Madgaz Moonshine, and Crusader Ale. I should have kept them back and just put one perk per map, like a
Mhm.
new perk, kind of what Triarch used to do. But I released all three on Fabric Dern Toten, and I was stuck after that. I was like, right, next map, what can I put in? I need a new perk. I've always, when I create a new map, I always like to have a new perk. And it's just, I think it's because Triarch did that back in the past, back in the old maps. Obviously, Black Ops 3, the only released Widow's Wine. But that was where it kind of stems from, where players are let down by Black Ops 3 only getting Widow's Wine. I thought when I create a custom map and they're playing a Madgaz map, they know the next map is going to have a new perk. And that's the train of thought for how I think my perks work, how I want to add a new one. Then I think of what perks are going to be, what can I use, what will be a beneficial perk to players, and it's just a case of it's just brainstorming realistically. Like so, Fabric Dern Totem, we had the three main perks, which is Banana Colada, Madgaz Moonshine, and Crusader Ale. Then I did, I mean, Bunker 10. Bunker 10 was basically just a community project, so I didn't have any new perks for that. Then I released Ochilon, and I had a new perk in that, Bull Ice Blast, which people to this day, I'm not entirely sure they understand how that works. They thought it enabled the player to double jump, but what it does is if you double jump when in midair, once you're at the highest point of that jump, if you press crouch, you slam into the ground and you freeze everything around you.
Ooh.
And that was like, that's a cool idea. I like that. Yeah, that's a cool perk. So that was the next perk for Ochilon, and that was just pure spitballing idea. It's got real no actual ties to the map. There's no relevance for having that perk in that map.
Yeah,
It could have been in
it's just
any
like a
map.
fun thing to have.
It's just something, yeah, something fun that I thought, right, I'll put that in the map. I'll create something new. And I say I created, I literally come up with an idea and a script, I script it. I can't script shit. So I can't take credit for scripting a perk. I come up with an idea, basically. I do the design work of it and whatever, and do really crude models, but besides the point. So then we had, so Ochilon, then what came next after Ochilon? Was it Grit? It was Grit. I think Grit was next. And what I did for Grit, which people hated, which I might bring back, I'm not entirely sure if I will or not. I didn't have a new perk. I didn't bring any wonder weapons into that one, I don't think. Or I did know there was a rifle. There was a rifle in there that was kind of like the slick with fire, but not many people got it because you had to complete the Easter egg to get it. Anyway, but I put in a new perk drop. No, sorry, not perk drop, a new drop. That was a dice, and it was called the Risk It dice. So when that dropped, it was a Risk It dice, and I had 6 effects, 3 negative and 3 positive. One, I cannot remember all of them, but I know one, it gave you double your points that you had already. So whatever points you had, it doubled them. The other side effect of that was it would half your points.
Ooh.
Another one made all the zombies sprinters. And the other side of that coin was make all zombies walk for 30 seconds. And what's the other one? The other one gave you a pack-a-punched your guns. Whatever gun you had in your hand, it pack-a-punched. And the other side of that coin was whatever gun you had in your hand got removed and you had a knife. And that was that drop, and people hated it. They're like, I'm not picking that drop. Why? Because I could get good or bad negative effect. And I'm thinking, but that's the whole
Oh,
purpose of it.
that's where the fun lies. I love
Yeah,
like just stuff that is new and unique and you just haven't seen it before like that. That sounds just like a blast.
Oh, there was another drop. Tell a lie on Bunker 10. It was the duck drop. It literally had the voice line, I am that duck. And what did that do again? I think that was just like a God mode. I'm pretty sure I'd just give you God mode for like 30 seconds worth of God mode.
Oh, wow.
I think that's what it was. So great. Yeah, then Studio 115. I don't think I put anything new into that map. I don't think. Oh, we did. We put a brand new, is it AAT?
Yeah, AAT.
Alternative ammo type. Yeah, we put a new one of them into the map. So when you pack a punch, you could get essentially Gersh device as an AAT on your gun. That was a new feature we stuck into that because I thought, why not? That sounds cool. Nothing else crazy for that one. The house didn't have anything special in it. Operation Laucha, can't remember if I had any new stuff in that map. Yeah, I don't think Operation Laucha had any special elements that I created especially for it. Atonement had a brand new perk and the Wonder Weapon. The Wonder Weapon was just insane on Atonement. It was a charge shotgun thing, yeah. It went through so many different changes and so many different models for it. And even the model that got released, it's not great. It looks clunky, it looks bulky, but it works. It does what it's meant to do. It is all right, I would say. But the perk that went unknown for a while, and I might bring it back for Ochilon Remastered, is Fire Fuel Soda. And what that was, you basically, if you stand still, a ring of fire charges around the player, like on the floor area. When zombies come into that, they catch fire and they essentially die. But the longer you stand still, the stronger the flames are and the quicker the zombies die. So you can essentially be invincible out of a certain round, essentially, once you stand still. But it's hard to try and stand still when zombies are attacking you. So it was kind of like a hit or miss perk. So yeah, we had the Wonder Weapon in that and the new perk for that. And then Operation Harbridge had the Wonder Weapon that was based around Alistair's Annihilator from Dead of Night, but it was a sniper version of it. And again, there's no real thought when I create these ideas of these new weapons. I don't really think like, oh, that'll be cool because that'll tie in with that map. That'll tie in with this feature of that map. what I'm thinking is different at the time. What would people like to see on the map and stuff like that?
Mhm.
Obviously, the effects that the map, the weapon would create, I'll try and keep that in theme with the map. So, like, say, Operation Harbridge, you had the sniper gun that kind of dissolved the zombies, that turned into a green, dark brown mush. That kind of matched in with the landscape because it's like a jungly vibe. But yeah, and then we have Forbidden Ground, which is just basically the spawn room from that one map from Cold War. There's nothing really new in that, I don't think. And then Overload, we had the new perk, which was Glitching Gin, and the new wonder weapon, which was the shotgun, electrical orb shotgun. I'm forgetting the name of it now. But yeah, those are two new things added into Overload. And this is the only map where I designed the idea for the wonder weapon around the elements of the map, being like electricity and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And Mikey Ray was the guy who basically did all that. I put some ideas to him, he put some back, and he came up with a whole idea for the wonder weapon for that map. And it fits well. I like that wonder weapon, but the perk, Glitch and Gin, I don't know if you played it when the perk was in the map. It was good, but it was very, very like glitchy, basically.
Yeah.
It did what it said in the tin. People could throw themselves out the map and die. It's one of those perks where you pick up a grenade and throw it, the player teleports to where the grenade went, but you could throw that grenade many places and get killed. No matter how many times I tried to zone everything differently and like draw the zone around where like you'd throw it out the map and it wouldn't teleport you there, it's still, no matter what I did to try and fix it, it was a broken perk and eventually got removed. And as sad as it is,
Yeah, I think I only played the map when the perk was removed, and I was like,
yeah,
"Oh, it's right there." What?
it probably could be released again if it had a lot more work done to it, but
Mhm.
the way it's standard, it just, again, it's down to my own stubbornness of setting myself a release date rather than actually testing things. I just wanted to get it done because I'd been working on it for nearly a year, maybe. And I was just like, you get to that burnout stage where it's so close to being complete, but there's so much else need doing. I'll ship it. Screw it. I'll send it, which I shouldn't have done. And then we have Cartano, which is the one that means zero I made, which is for relax and end. There wasn't really anything new in that.
Well, the dual wield ray guns were pretty cool.
Yeah, dual rear guns, but nothing like I'm saying, nothing crazy new. We had lots of melee weapons in that,
Mhm.
and we had the jet. The jet gun was back for the first time in a long time. But yeah, it wasn't nothing. We didn't have new perks or anything. And then we had Mad Royale. I don't know if you played Mad Royale.
I haven't.
Mad Royale is it was a labor of love that me and Harry and Alpha the Zeus, we were coming up with some ideas for new game modes. And the way we were trying to do with this map was basically create a new addictive game mode that then other creators could create a map for. They would like, then I would send them the files to add the features into their map, which would be the same features
Mhm.
as and then basically have the same player style as what we have, but just in a different arena type thing. And it just didn't catch on. It didn't work. It was too janky. It's basically the whole idea is you kill zombies, they drop dog tags. You pick up a dog tag, your health bar essentially, let's say, or your score bar goes up. So you get more kills, more score, but your score is also your life, and it ticks down.
Mhm.
So it's ticking down all the time. You've got to keep it. It's kind of like cranked in a
Yeah.
sense. It's cranked. It was cranked for Black Ops 3 custom zones, but you had multipliers. So the more kills you got, your multiplier would rank up. But the higher you got, the higher your multiplier was, the faster it would tick down. So it was like it's so crazy. It was like unreal. And like you watch people on YouTube playing, they would like play for like 30 seconds and like, I've died. Because when your time got down, your character exploded.
Mhm.
You're like, what the fuck? Why have I exploded? What? I haven't done anything. No zombies had spawned at that point, and I've just died. I was like, yeah, there's a lot of tweaking need to be done of it and that, but it could have been better. And even that wasn't even a rush job. We took our time thinking through things and stuff. It just, I don't know. I just don't think it worked as well as we hoped it would. But yeah, when it comes to me, like I say, asking like, how do I come up with new ideas for different things? It's kind of just spur of the moment, like what I think would be good, or I'd look at what somebody else has done. I think, oh, they've done that. I'll make a variant of that for my map, whether it works or not. 9 times out of 10, some of the stuff that I create doesn't work, but I go with it anyway because I just think, yeah, why not?
I think most of the stuff you do works fantastically. Like I think everything in your maps I find You might see it differently, but I think it all kind of like weaves together to make an ideal experience. And there's not one thing that feels left out or like a stone unturned. Like you make your maps very concise, and everything kind of fits together like puzzle pieces when I play your maps.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, like I say, going back to taking positive criticism, it's so hard to hear things like that because, like, I look at my maps and I just think, "Oh my god, why did I do that? Why is this like that?"
I'm the same way. So I understand like giving like positive feedback, like or like telling you positive feedback, and like if you were to say something nice to me, I'd just be like, nah. It's like,
Yeah, I totally agree, mate. It's a weird one, but I take that all on board, and I'm really appreciative of like the kind words that you say. I would think as time goes on, my mapping skills are getting better. So no stones are on left turn. So there's always some kind of like need for that part of detail to be there, and that's when people are playing the map, like, yeah, that makes sense because that's there. And I think also it goes to the other side of the coin where people wouldn't notice these things because it fits so well.
mhm,
You know what I mean? So if something fits well into a map, they wouldn't think it. If you have, I don't know, for instance, a car park, and you just have a random missile sticking in a car park, it looks so out of place. It doesn't make any sense why it's there. So you automatically be drawing your attention to that random object that's there. But in the end of the day, it might not do anything. It might just be someone put it there because, oh, I need to fill an area with something. It's
mhm.
all about just trying to get that right. Like, I can't even think of the words I'm trying to use. I'm so illiterate with like words. It's ridiculous. You need everything needs to have a purpose in your maps for it to feel natural. And like you said, you feel like you don't leave any stone unturned or whatever. I feel like sometimes I do leave too many stones unturned, and some parts of my maps look so like so barren and useless. And it's a weird way of like trying to get a balance where I always try and make each section, each room of my map have a purpose. Like maybe just a wall by in there. But then if I think if a room has only got a wall by, the way I would kind of work it, so that room has got a wall by in, it maybe isn't a great wall by, I will then add an Easter egg step in that room. So
Mhm.
I know players will have to go to that room and try and make sure the player space is always being used throughout the Easter egg or throughout when they're playing for things. So like a less more important area would maybe have a box spawn, a mystery box spawn. So I know players are going to have to enter that room at some point, and I might spend a bit more time detailing it so they go, oh, this looks like a really nice room, rather than just, yeah, put a box there. That's that. You know, it's a hard one. It
Mhm.
really is because I don't think personally that my maps are anything special. But like again, it's all about taking that criticism, and I cannot take it.
Well, I can tell you otherwise. Your maps are fucking fantastic.
No, thank you very much. It's a weird thing to hear.
Yeah, no, it's definitely off-putting. Or I wouldn't say off-putting, but it's kind of, I don't know. It's a different feeling from just like I'm making my map and I'm gonna post it, and then I hope people enjoy it. But then when you're having a conversation with somebody and they're like, "No, what you did is good." I'm just like, okay.
I totally agree, mate. But then I can see the likes of yourself. I see the stuff that you create. I'm like, fuck, that looks so cool. I would never know where to start or how to even like attempt to create stuff like that. And then it's not to disrespect you
Mm.
or anybody who I think that of. Then I'll just say, well, how did you create that? And you go, oh, I just use this texture, and you'll send the texture through, and I'm like, oh, that's how they're doing it. And it really is as easy as that. And then, but even then, sometimes I could be shown how to do something and I could still never get that look. Like some of the parts on your map I've seen, they're like phenomenal. I'm like looking at it thinking, how does that look like that? Whereas if I try to recreate that on my end, it looks like somebody stabbed a potato with a straw. It doesn't make any sense. It's, I don't know how. I could follow a tutorial from the start to the finish. My end product would not look like that.
Mm.
That's just the way. That's why I always trial and error, and I wing everything that I do. I wing it all the time.
Yeah, no, it's for me, my thought process is just kind of like start very basic and expand on that. So like kind of architecture, I'll sort of like block something out like a very rudimentary shape, and then I'll be like, okay, how are these arches gonna look? Maybe I'll do it in like a dev texture or something. Most of the
Yeah.
time, I'll apply the texture I want, and then I'll work around that. Which, for any listeners, don't do that. That's like that is a difficult way to go about things, and I would recommend you not do that.
I mean, I could recommend anybody listening to this just don't do anything that I do.
Yeah, if you're listening, really just don't listen to us. Listen to something else because
We
our
don't know what we're talking
at,
about.
at least my workflow is terrible.
I don't have workflow. Like we said at the start, I don't have
Mm.
workflow. I just kind of, I've always have just went in with the whole idea of like, I want to recreate the small little area, my spawn room, and then just expand from that. Sometimes the way the map starts in my head, I'm like, yeah, that's going to advance to this stage. That'll advance to that. That'll have this from here. That'll be that from there. And it never ends that way. And it always looks completely different to what I had in my head originally. And I wish I had a little notebook years ago that would draw down very rough ideas of a room layout. And 9 times out of 10, none of that would ever come to fruition. It would literally just be the first maybe half, maybe a third of the spawn room would look like how I originally intended it. Then the rest of the map is just free will, just like whatever flows at the time, whatever I'm feeling. And it also goes down to whatever I'm looking at, whatever I'm watching at the time. I could be watching or playing a different game, and I think, oh, that looked cool on my map. Recreating the map, and once it's done, like that actually doesn't even fit. That's not even thematically in that kind of region. Like, why have I put that in there? I've got like a steampunk map, but I've put a futuristic flying elevator or some shit. I don't know. I mean, me personally, I start small and I just keep going and going and going. And whatever have influenced me through the day, looking at people's maps, looking at people's show offs and all the different channels and stuff like that, it's a massive influence. Like even now, when I'm making the Ochilon remake, I'm looking at Dingus, his map,
Oh
and like
my
how it's like
gosh.
how the what? Like I wanted my map to look run down as if it's been abandoned but still overgrown. Yet he's got that, but he's using very, very little foliage, very little vines, and it still looks so fucking cool. And I look back at mine and think, how?
Yeah, it's the like the foliage pack you released, and then he just uses like this World War II rock model all the time. I'm like, that looks so cool. He put me
Oh yeah,
onto it. I gotta show you. It's the best model. It works for like everything. I've used it as like
I need it.
mountains in
I
distance.
need
It
it.
looks so
I
good.
need it. Well, that's the thing. I did I went into a couple of multiplayer maps on Black Ops 3 and I saw some like different like things that Treyarch had done, like different set pieces and stuff. And I was like, oh, I like that. That would be cool. And the very first spawn area of the Ochilon Remastered, there's a tree. And that tree and the rocks around it, there's a bit leaves and stuff like that, is ripped from the Citadel map on Black Ops 3. So I loaded that in, ripped the map file,
Mm.
got the model placement, loaded that into Radiant, and then just selected everything there, copied it over, put it into my map, and I'm like, that looks so cool. But then I try and recreate that in other parts of the map, and it looks nothing like how Treyarch did. I'm like, but I've used the same models, I've used the same tree, the same models, the same grass, the same textures. Why does mine not look like it? Even though I've got it in my map already and it looks cool, trying to replicate it somewhere else in the map, so it's a variation of it, it looks nothing like it. I'm like, I don't know how. I just can't get it. I
Mm.
don't know how.
No, yeah, porting from Black Ops 6, I don't think I have like the current way to port from Black Ops 6, so I'm stuck with the older COD games. Is it difficult getting assets and like bringing them into Ape from BO6?
Getting the assets is easy. You just there's a guy who's created this program which allows you to basically dump the entire game, because I think from Cold War onwards, or maybe after Cold War, all of them came with that is it Ricochet anti-cheat
Yeah, the
software
Ricochet
stuff.
anti-cheat.
Yeah, so if you're using any of them games that use the Ricochet, if you use Greyhound on them games, you essentially can be banned. You get your accounts banned and something. It's not worth the hassle. So he's created this program that allows you. You've got to own the game, obviously. It allows you to dump the game files, the fast files. I'm not entirely sure how it works.
Mm.
You dump some sort of file from that game, but you need to be disconnected offline. Otherwise, you get banned as well for that. Then reconnect online, and then you get his new version of Greyhound. You load up there's dump, and you create an exe file of that dump, or a bat file or whatever it is. Load that. That runs. Then you run Greyhound, and it's kind of like a simulated version. Like,
Mhm.
it thinks you're running the game, but you're not running the game. You're just running the dump version of it, so it can access the files, so you can't get banned. That took a bit to set up, but once that's done, it's basically just as simple as porting anything else. There is a weird a material setup now that they use. The material setup is a lot similar, if not easier, than Black Ops 3.
Ooh.
But they do this thing now where they have, so say you have, for instance, let's be as basic as possible. You have a cube. You've exported a cube from Black Ops 6. You're like, oh, I like that cube. It's a red cube. You open up the file that you've got in the folders, and you're like, right, it's got one material. So you click on the material folder and you see all the images, and it might have like 3 different sets of images, and you're like, but it's only a red cube. Why has it got 3 sets of images? And it's, oh, one's red, one's blue, and one's green. But the cube in game is, I don't quite understand it.
Mhm.
So then what you need to do, because it's only one, then you load that model, the X model bin, into Ape, and it will literally show you one material, but you've got 3 sets of material to use for this model. And you think, well, this doesn't make any sense. So how am I going to do this? So Kingslayer Kyle has just released a plugin for Maya in Blender that you can drag your model in, and it splits the mesh. And what they've done is they have, say, that one material file inside of the model. It's now 3 materials into one, which is
Ooh.
weird. So you need to split that.
Okay.
They've basically created the UV of the model and added more materials into one UV. So it's like a packed UV. So you have to split the UV again, and then export it, and then you can see the actual materials that you need to do. But it's very rare on like just static prop models. Like all the cars that I did, the cars didn't have anything like that. They were just basically straight.
Mhm.
There's your car body, there's your car wheels, there's the glass, there's the inside. The only thing that was weird, well, it wasn't weird, but it was a bit of a pain, is they had the underside of the car, the boot, and the engine of the car, high detail, like 4K textures, because in Black Ops 6, you can shoot the bonnets off in
Mhm.
the boot of the car as well to reveal the engine. Whereas in Black Ops 3, you would need to script all that, and it's like, yeah. So doing that in April was a bit of a pain. But like I say, prop models, static models, they're fairly simple to port from Black Ops 6. They really are. Like, it's a case of just having your standard normal map, your color map, your specular, and your gloss. It's just so simple of a process. There's a few reveal and mix maps here and there with like dirt models and stuff, but nothing to what, like, because some of the stuff for Black Ops 3 has some weird multi-mix reveals and stuff, and you think, what the hell? But unless it's a script model, like I say, I'm busy doing the SAM trials, the
Mhm.
SAM trial machine, that had four initial materials, but then when I put it into Maya and used the plugin to separate them, it now has 16 separate materials.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Cold War materials, because I remember trying to get some models from Cold War, and it's like a perk machine could have up to like what 30 or something like that. It's like
Oh, yeah, that was different
ridiculous.
again. That it was ridiculous. They were just like crazy materials anyway. Now it's like, I think the Wonder Fizz, the Cold War Wonder Fizz had so many materials on it, but now I think it's just like 2. I think it's like 2 materials and that's it, done.
Hmm.
It's so much more similar. I would say the Black Ops 6 models are a lot more high quality and easier to port than some of the older games. The easiest one to port was, like we said earlier, was World War II. Those models were insanely easy to port. They literally just had, there's your model, there's your textures, that's it, done. No extra messing around with Maya or Blender or anything like that.
Hmm. No, I find a World War II definitely was like easy for me. Another it's semi easy. It was the Modern Warfare remakes. Those you can get what you needed, but then you would have to put it into like game image util and to get like the specular, the gloss, and the ambient occlusion. But once you had that, it was game ready. All you had to do was just drag it into Ape.
But you do that now. I think with Black Ops 6, you have to do that now. So your normal file is packed with your normal uh, gloss and ambient occlusion.
Mm.
So you have the 3 there. Then you have your color map, which is your color map and your specular. So you just need to split 2 images, and that's it, done.
Are you planning on making any more packs in the future for Black Ops 6? Like maybe like rebel debris, maybe just like miscellaneous thing, or just kind of zombie models, perchance?
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. I'm literally, I think I ripped about 100 models at the minute, which are quite unique models who I've used inside the Ochilon. So you have like different curve models, you have telephone models,
Hmm.
lamppost, chairs, debris models, broken doors. So like some of the broken doors inside of Black Ops 6, you got a few of them. Just kind of like models I think would work well in the environment. Also, the cars. I'm releasing another vehicle pack, which is kind of the military vehicles, like the police cars, the big Janus vehicles, and the tanks and type
Hmm.
stuff like that. So I'm releasing stuff like that. So it's going to be a big pack, and it'll take us a while to release it. But I might give it out early to close friends. Who knows?
I hope I'm a close friend because that
Well,
sounds
you
awesome.
you most certainly are.
Let's go.
Do it.
I no, I need to just get into Black Ops 6 and rip all the assets from the tomb. I think that'd be very helpful for Army of Darkness that I'm working on. I wanna kind of transition to the community and releasing maps. How do you go about kind of like promoting and sharing something like the Ochilon or previous maps closer to release?
I used to just basically just contact big YouTubers. Back in the day, I would like try and speak to the bigger ones like Mr. Darla JD, Noah, and be like saying, "Look, I'm releasing a new map. Would you like to be first to try it? You can be first to try it a day before release. They'll promote it that way." I would just hound people, essentially. And I'm pretty sure people got sick. They were just like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, Madgaz back at it again. He's got a new map. Who cares?" But I would literally just push it as much as I could, like Instagram. I'll post stuff on Instagram, just loads of tags for Call
Mhm.
of Duty and stuff like that. And it would literally be just a non-stop barrage from all my social media accounts, just pushing what I've been doing and when it's releasing and stuff like that. And that's the only way I can ever think of doing things other than printing flyers off and posting them around my hometown.
That's a good way to do it. I think you have like some of like the best trailers on the workshop. I think my favorite has got to be the trailer for Atonement. That's just my favorite map that you've made. I love Atonement so much.
Yeah, it's such a cool map. I mean, Exela was the guy who made the trailer for that.
Mhm.
He made that. So all credit to him for that. And every other trailer I've done, I've kind of just fudged it myself the best I can.
Are there any trends in the community that you think are improving zombies? And do you see any like issues that need to be addressed?
I think the community is a lot bigger. And it seems to be, there was like a point in time when the tools were kind of new and everybody's trying to figure out how to do this, how to do that, and creating these little tools and these little like programs and applications to make life easier. And a lot of the time, most of that was gatekept. Like people were gatekeeping all these cool tools, so the people who weren't in the know didn't get to have that, so you
Mhm.
couldn't use this. Now, I would think personally, the community is a lot more healthier than it ever was. There's always new people coming into the community, and everybody seems a lot more helpful than they used to be. And I think I don't know whether it's down to just people getting older and like realizing, like me myself personally, like not everybody understands everything from day one, and a lot of people do need a bit more guidance, like a bit of hand holding to show them how to do it, and that's okay. That's fine. That's more than acceptable this day and age. And I do think personally, the community, as I see it, is a lot more better than it was. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to come back and start doing mod tools again and creating content, because I saw the community was just, it seemed to had evolved into this bigger thing where the help was there, the
Mhm.
packs were there. You want to create something, there's no reason why you couldn't. And you could go to these different people, like the veterans of the areas, like all the skills and all that. And it seems that everybody is now trying to help each other as best I can. I don't see a lot of gatekeeping going on in the community as of right now. There might be behind closed doors, but as far as I'm concerned, everything that is available to me is available to everybody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I found like when I kind of got into the community with a few years back, I found that it was like I just didn't know where to go. So I was like stuck to watching like YouTube tutorials like Jaybird, Program 115. You like were massive in
Me.
like shaping like how I made maps. Learning about like discords and everything like that and kind of figuring that out was also such a great help. And like I'll say it forever, devraw is like a main source for me when it comes to just like learning how like I think they don't have it now, but when Devra used to have the wiki, I would just be scrolling through it and figuring out like, okay, these are like here's it would just be like a list. These are Easter egg steps that Treyarch has used, whether it be for like a major or a side Easter egg. This is mechanics that they
Yeah,
use, and I would just like
yeah,
go through that and figure out like how to optimize a map and make it better and what worked and what didn't. I find the
I totally
community
agree. Yeah,
now is just very, very welcoming.
definitely. It's very, very diverse as well. Lots of different talents. And you see, like on DevRaw, I know there's a lot of stigma involving the whole DevRaw, like with Logical and Virco, the whole creating their own game studio and stuff.
Mhm.
So kind of DevRaw kind of got that bad rep because it was tied to these guys who were trying to create something different. Not going to get into that. That's a different podcast for a different day.
Yeah.
But like DevRaw in itself, for what it is, for the community, for newcomers, for even myself, to
Mhm.
go there and to be able to have this, like you say, it's like a vault of information, packs, all these easily downloadable stuff, whether you agree they work or they don't work or they're broken. Because a lot of people will say, oh, that's a broken product. You shouldn't be, don't put that in your map. That won't work. Fair enough. But it still is something. It's a resource for
Mhm.
something to use, to take for free, no charge, and get help when needed. And it's a great community. I mean, like I said, there was that stigma earlier when DevRaw was first like announced and stuff like that because of what was going on. But as of now, it is one of the main resources for mod tools. I would generally say it. And what Logical's got planned, it is pretty much just like it's the go-to stop.
Mhm.
If you're new to mod tools, hop over on DevRaw, see what's on offer, see what's there for free to download, to add it to your map, fill your map with stuff. I mean, I've always been against just cluttering a map just for the sake of having all these crazy shit in it, but it's nice to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
No, yeah, definitely picking and choosing assets and what would be appropriate for a map. That's where I feel like a bunch of new mappers kind of falter a little bit. Do you have any advice for new mappers going forward to help them out? Maybe it's a mistake you made in the past, or just anything to kind of encourage new mapping.
Definitely. The main thing, what I always tell new mappers, start small. You may have an idea in your head. You've got this grand plan of how your map is going to be. It's going to be this massive scale invasion map, whatever you're going to have. Do not do that. Don't do it. Scrap it. Start again. Create a scene. The best thing you could do, what I always tell these people is find an image, find even just look outside your front door. An image on Google search of a forest or a woodland or a lake or something and recreate that. Recreate a scene. Learn the tools. Learn to create a scene or learn how to make structures, how structures work before you commit to making an entire whole map and watch tutorials, lighting tutorials. Probe your map first. Always probe a map
Oh
before you put a
yeah.
light in the room.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the fundamental things. You see people put lights in the room. They're like, oh, I've put a probe in. It's made the lights too bright. It's like, yeah, you need to probe your map before you light the room. That's one of the main things to do. And I always say, start small, design something very, very little, minimalist, make it as detailed as you can, learn the tools, learn what patches are, blends are, how decals work, and model placement and stuff like that. And just give everything story, like a reason for being there. Like I was saying before, so if you've got a hole in the floor, there would be rubble around it. There wouldn't be glass scattering around a concrete rubble hole. Make things believable, but always start small. Don't go in head first thinking, all right, I'm making a map. I've got this idea. It's going to be this, 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 and this. You've never touched the tools before. You've literally opened up the blank template map. You've stretched the skybox to the biggest it can go. You've stretched the floor to the biggest. Now you've got like a 10,000 unit squared map
Mm-hmm.
that you can't fill. Always start small. And that is one of the key things I did when we made Mad Royale. The whole idea for that map came around. I had the spawn room, the template map, the actual first spawn little hut that you get in the template map for the zombies. I made a challenge to myself to detail that as best I could to make it unrecognizable from the template map, just
Mhm.
that tiny little square room. And then I looked and I thought, I'm going to build a map from that using that exact style that I've used to detail that in. So anybody listening to this, if you want to get into mapping, start small. Don't think you've got this crazy grand idea. Build up to these big ideas. Start small. That's the best advice I can give you.
Now, I think I always tell people build what you know. And I think
Yeah.
starting small, that is also such an excellent piece of advice because when I first started out, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make Shadows of Evil meets Mob of the Dead. That was gonna be the first map. And then I was like, okay, this isn't working at all. I don't know what I'm doing. It looks bad. So then I moved on to making like my friend's house. That map, though it's not released, that map got way further into development because that was something I knew. It was small, it was kind of his neighborhood, and it was
Mhm.
manageable. And I feel like
Exactly. Yeah.
bringing that in and having the ability to just be like, okay, start small. I know roughly scales of things. Like I know where a door should be in this house. I know this park there's a tree right here and I can guesstimate the height. Starting with what you know, I think is like one of the
That's
best
exactly. Yep.
ways
Definitely.
to get
It's
going.
one of the I totally wholeheartedly agree. And again, like, use references as much as you can. Look at real life situations and environments for your map, because it's time and time again I'll see people like will make a house and they'll have the house and they're like, oh yeah, it's got bricks, it's got a roof. It's like, but I've never seen a house that looks like that. Look at how houses are detailed. You'll have different structures, different brick textures.
Mhm.
The roof's a different texture to the walls. It's just everything. It can be created inside these tools. These tools can create some amazing things. So it's none of this, oh, I'm limited to what I can create because these tools can't do X, Y, and Z. They can create some amazing stuff. We've all seen what they can and can't create. But I always think there's never settle for second best when, if someone's saying, personal experience myself, if someone says you should change this because this would look better, don't just throw that away as a throwaway comment. Take it on board and think, oh yes, yeah, that will work. I saw somebody in the Mod Tools Discord literally post a picture of a house and it would just look like a block with a triangle on the roof as
Mhm.
a roof. And I was thinking, is that what a house looks like to you? Yes, fundamentally, those are the basic shapes. That's the block out shape of a house, a square with a triangle on the roof for the roof, and that's it. But build on it. Don't just accept it that is that. You can always, like, there's so much you can create with these tools, and there's so much detail you can add to make things look really cool. And again, what you say, go with what you know in real life, what you can see visually around you. Use that as your skill and standards and stuff like that. And also just start small. That's best way. Start small.
You put that perfectly. I that couldn't have said it better. As we're wrapping up here, I just want to ask you a final question. If there anything you want to promote, anything you final words, just let me know.
I have nothing. I would like to promote this podcast because this podcast, I'm hoping this podcast takes off because it really should. It's something we deserve in the community. And if you are listening to this and you enjoy this podcast, always like, subscribe, and share it around with all your friends and stuff like that. I will be making a video mentioning this podcast soon because
Oh, thank
why
you.
not? Why not?
No,
We're a community and we
you,
should all help each other out.
you're too kind. You don't want to promote the Ochilon or the
Oh, that'll
Discord
be
that you
fine. That'll
got?
promote itself. That'll promote itself one day down the line. I mean, you could put a link to people to join my Discord. If you feel like joining my Discord, it'll be down in the description, I'd imagine.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I'm all here for promoting this. I'm here for this right now. Not me, not the Ochilon. That'll be somewhere down the future. You'll no doubt you'll see that me posting shit online about that once it's near completion. But yeah, the podcast's where it's at for me.
Well, thank you so much, Madgaz. Thank you for coming out. I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it.
Not a problem. Yep, awesome, dude. Thank you.